Assalamualaikum everyone, hope you're doing well inshallah. So before we start the show, I wanted to do something that I have been meaning to do for some time that I haven't gotten around to doing. So first I just wanted to thank all our listeners for all the support, be it through messages that we receive online to essentially the listeners share our content to just you guys telling your friends and family about us. SubhanAllah, how when we first started off, we didn't even imagine we would grow to this sort of level. Only if we imagined only just maybe even 40 or 20 people would tune in, this and that. But then SubhanAllah, now we're almost 3 years in and we have over 1,000, 2,000 listeners per episode, alhamdulillah. So essentially I'd like to thank you all for that, for supporting us along this journey. And at the same time, also in terms of, I guess, also people who support us financially, may Allah reward you immensely. It's still crazy to think, people are actually so generous and then they're able to sort of give to us an initiative like us. We're honestly flattered that people are willing to help us, because the sort of costs that come with this is essentially, firstly, with Lipsin, with the running costs to have all the content online, to Zencast, which is a program we use with online guests to make sure the audio quality is very good for you guys. And at the same time, there's all the equipment costs that come with that. And at the same time, we're actually looking to get our own place, so we're actually saving all the money in order to have our own little space that we can work out of, so we can even make more content in the future, make it even better, and build towards something better, like be it video podcasts in the future, inshallah. So that's something that we're all working towards. And alhamdulillah, without your support, it just would not be possible that we would be thinking like this as our vision. So essentially, with the Patreon page that we have, we have quite a few supporters there. And so if people actually become $5 patrons, not only do they hop onto our exclusive WhatsApp chat, which has the likes of our guests, our donators, and also people like our guests like Dr. Jonathan Brown, Asadullah Ali, Mohammed Taba, Ahmed Karat, and a few others, Rima Chia, for example, who've all on the chat as well. So we're all having essentially a good time. Just everyone's with different viewpoints, discussing issues that are happening in the community, and also about certain things they like or dislike about the podcast. It's all in there. So, so the $5 patron gives access to that, but not only that, it also gives a person opportunity to get a shout out. So today I'll quickly give a shout out to all our supporters, either who've supported us through Patreon or PayPal on a regular $5 a month basis. So shout out to Asan Khan, good friend of mine, Kashif as well, Kashif Sheikh, who's a good friend of mine, Abdullah Akhtar, I think out from America. Shout out to Shafat Hussain as well, know him well, locally well. Borhain Gori, who joined us on the chat recently, shout out to Borhain. Jawad Khan, shout out to Jawad, has been very active on the chat, and he's been very, mashallah, great guy. Sonam Hussain, who's been supporting us online, constantly sharing our episodes. Shout out to Sonam. Yaman, who's been, mashallah, I think another brother from another mother. We talk quite a bit offline as well. Fida Rahman, good friend. Shout out to Fida. Shout out to Binash, which is Josh's wife. Shout out to Binash, been supporting us. Sherry as well. Sherry Tahir, good friend of mine as well. Shout out to Ismail Mohammed from India. He's been a loyal supporter of ours, alhamdulillah. Harris Amin, who's been also a loyal supporter and has supported us along this journey and doesn't necessarily agree with all our views, but at the same time, he's always supporting our project. So shout out to Harris. Tamim Azfar, someone that I know from the distance locally. Shout out to Tamim, who's been supporting us. Rima Chia as well, who's been a guest as well. Shout out to Rima. Yusuf Chowdhury, the marketing dude. Shout out to Yusuf. Syed Hassan Ali, shout out to Syed. Abdul Aziz Hassan from Melbourne, great guy. Me and him are always talking offline. So thanks for the support. And last but not least, Muhammad Irshad Wahab. Shout out to Muhammad for supporting us. So essentially, those are our people that have been supporting us along this journey. If you guys wanted to hop onto the WhatsApp chat and also get a shout out on a podcast, just literally go on patreon.com/boysinthecave and jump onto a $5 tire. If you feel that the $5 tire a bit too much, you've got a $1 option as well. And essentially we'll make dua for you as well. So, may Allah reward all of you for supporting us along the journey. And, not only is it just from a financial perspective of helping for support, it's also just you guys messaging us, you guys also sharing our content. And for those who, just a simple share, you can just do that and that'll support us. Even if you have like 30 or 40 or 50 followers on Instagram, for example, literally just we would appreciate it, just by supporting our podcast. You just chuck it up on your Insta story to say, to your followers, hey, I listened to this podcast, check it out. They got some interesting topics or something, and we'll probably even share it if you tag us in it. And, you're helping us, that's how we feel. But in those where there's actually more barakah in that, because it only takes one person to share with another big influencer dude who will, support our podcast. So it kind of, we don't undermine any sort of, goodness when it comes to sharing our podcasts around. So, feel free to make a post about it on Facebook. Share your thoughts on even if you want to send a message, feel free to do that. Any form, there's many ways to help our podcast. And, inshallah, I hope, each and one of you who listen to this content actually do help us in any way, shape or form, inshallah, to grow. So, I know it's been a while. I was talking for some time. So essentially I'll just kick right into the show. I did it with Abdulah Hamimi, who I went to Melbourne on a holiday trip, and I did a amazing and a chill but very insightful episode with, which I hope you guys will enjoy. A lot of laughs in there as well. A bit different, but I feel that the vibe was there to hopefully, and also has great insights. And mashallah, Abdulah Hamimi is a wonderful guy. So I hope you guys enjoy the show. And yeah, keep supporting us, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. How do I address your title?
It's coming up, Brother Abdullah.
Brother of the Ummah.
No, brother of the Ummah. Oh, wow. I can tell, I'll take that. No, but just call me Brother Abdullah. Oh, it's Abdullah. Just keep it chill.
No, as in like...
my title?
No, as in, Australasia Outreach Specialist for iERA, etc.
Yeah, say that.
I copied it from the TEDx website. By the way, I might as well start it now. Like, I did a clickbait. So the Facebook live title is live episode with TEDx speaker Abdullah Hamimi. Because so like people who may not have heard you, who are friends with me, for example, they'll be like, oh, TEDx speaker, mashallah.
Hashtag clout.
Yeah, legit. That's what we try to do at Boys in the Cave. We try to maximize as much clout as possible.
No, you're good, bro.
Alhamdulillah.
That's funny.
But all right, I'll get started, inshallah. So assalamu alaikum, listeners. Welcome back to another episode of Boys in the Cave. I'm your host, Tanzim, and I'm joined by my very special guest, Abdulah Hamimi, who I've actually, it is a total lie, but let's just pretend it's true, that I totally I took a trip to Melbourne just so I could drove 10 hours just to record with you, alhamdulillah, because such a very, very special guy. That part is true. I don't know about the part of traveling just for you. I kind of intertwined the whole Boys in the Cave, just do an episode, plus okay, I got a holiday as well. So alhamdulillah, you agreed. I was a bit worried that you might not agree to this opportunity, inshallah. So it's good to see you here. So to give you a quick bio, you are Australasia, is it? Yeah, Australasia Outreach Specialist. But what's the difference between Australasia and Australia?
Well, see, they've got wa alaikum assalam, everyone, by the way. And low key, it is true. He did come here just for me. Or more of just write it off as a business expense, yeah? So we've got an iERA outreach specialist in New Zealand now. And so I was Australasia specialist before the New Zealand guy came in. And then now they're also getting somebody in Samoa. So there's a...
Australasia is like the whole Pacific Islands.
So
and
Oceania.
Yeah. Oceania. Yeah, that's it. I don't know the continents and stuff.
Of course, the Ummah is not defined by borders.
But isn't Australia a continent?
Australia's a continent. I'm not sure
whether... But then what's Oceania? Is that a continent?
Oceania is like a little bit of
continent.
Indonesia, New Zealand,
So where would they
Fiji.
fall under continents? Sorry, this is really fascinating.
You're really testing my geography here. I didn't come prepared for these questions. I'm not actually sure. I prefer this to be called Australia because it's Australia, yeah.
Would you say you're more Melbourne based? By the way, the context is you're an outreach specialist for iERA. So iERA is mostly the organization that's based in UK, right? Are they the head?
So iERA, not iERA. Yeah.
iERA.
Yeah, so it's a
that's it.
UK-based a charity, Dawah organization that's run. The chairperson is Sheikh Abdulah Hamimi Green, and Hamza Zortzis is the CEO.
We've not had either of them on, but inshallah,
Maybe-
you can
maybe-
give us a
maybe
good
I can
word.
pull some strings and
Yeah.
we'll see what we can get. But if you slide some money under the table, I can.
We'll,
No, but Hamza's going to be he's going to be a hard man to catch for the next, I think, 6 or so months.
yeah, because we did an episode with Subu Ahmed.
Yeah.
It's actually going to release in a few weeks. I asked him the same question. Can you help us get Hamza Sortis on? He's like, oh, no, he's busy, this, that.
Yeah, he's really tough to get in, especially because, as far as I know, he's finishing his masters.
I thought that was an excuse, by the way. I thought like,
No,
he doesn't want to come on
legitimately
Boys in
doing
the
his
Cave.
masters. Yeah, but there's a little bit more, but I don't think I can share some of his more recent flights. I'll leave that to just.
Are you in the WhatsApp groups?
Yeah, of course.
That's
yeah.
so cool, bro. So are you like chatting casually, like?
Well,
Because you did. By the way, your background is also you did degree in also philosophy of religion.
Yeah.
So do you actually discuss like deep, like philosophical stuff in the WhatsApp?
I
threads?
wish. Well, see, the WhatsApp threads are like this, right? So the way we operate is that each geographical region can sort of operate autonomously. Yeah. So in terms of and it's actually really it's quite eye opening for a Muslim organization to be run in this way, in the sense that like there's no this over the top overarching leadership kind of being like do this and do that. Basically, the philosophy at iERA is that the people, the locals, know their context the best. Yeah, in terms of what they need and what they can do and that sort of stuff. So, my interaction with I can get in touch with these guys whenever I want, but it's not like we have these running WhatsApp threads like we do with MSA.
That's what we do. That's what I mean. Hanafi fiqh threads. It's all like I don't know.
Yeah, so we're constantly debating about prawns and non-grape beer. Yeah. No, so probably the person that I've been in touch with the most was Sabur, just because when he came to Australia. We had a bit of a friendship, and I got a lot of advice from him. And when I need to get in touch, I do get in touch. But like everyone's so busy, so it's not like we have these times to chill. But I do know that in the head office they have like halaqat and they have like programs that they do there. But I'm not in head office, so
the live stream it? Are you just watching it through the live stream?
No, I'm not involved in that at all.
Okay, it's completely different.
Australia sort of it's past its embryonic stage. The idea is to replicate a lot of it's part of the model at least, and they've done it really successfully in Canada, to do that in Australia as well. And so building a team, having those resources, and doing all that sort of stuff. And so far, I've been in the role for since November last year, November 2018. Yeah, so it's only been a year and a bit, and alhamdulillah, we've made a lot of progress, and it's been really, really well received, and it's very, very motivating and inspiring for myself. And incredibly like spiritually rewarding. That's one of those things, that like without sounding too cliche, like it's like you don't even this time just passes with your dawah, in the sense that like there's no okay, I'll finish at 5, or hey, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. You just always take the next.
Or you
step.
don't spend too much time in the bathroom as well to pass time.
I do philosophize in the shower sometimes, but that's probably where my main thinking occurs.
Alhamdulillah. So so in terms of the dawah that you do with iERA, so what sort of stuff are you trying to achieve like on the ground here? Because I assume because you live in Melbourne, is it more Melbourne based? Or I know you went to Sydney, like we had a chat, and you mentioned that you did stuff at I forgot the mosque. Was it UMA?
Yeah, UMA, and we did.
So you do like workshops and stuff around. Is it just like Sydney, Melbourne based, or is it all around Australia? Like,
so Australia's it's obviously a big continent, and there's only so much you can, one person can reach out to. So it's essential to build a team, right? And naturally, you'll want to work in your locality, right, and ensure that have a strong base in your locality, and then reach out. So a few opportunities arose in Sydney, and there's been a few more that are coming up in. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to announce it, but I'll do it anyway.
Mashallah, inside scoop at
BITC.
We're always about
exclusive here at Boys in the Cave. And maybe you can get Ali Dawah on as well. He's coming to Perth in the first week of April.
And is he still affiliated with
He's not
iERA?
he's not officially with iERA, but all the brothers there work very, very closely together.
I know Mohammed
support each
Hijab
other.
joined as well. Was it
Yeah,
recently?
Hijab joined, and he's another guy that hard to catch as well. But we're working on bringing him over, inshallah.
It's because I have him on WhatsApp, so Yusuf Ahmed gave me Mohammed Hijab's number.
Does he leave you on blue? Does he leave you on blue
Sometimes,
ticks?
but then when he does, when I ask him, "Oh, do you want to come on this and that?" The show, he's just like that. Only time he says he can't, he'll make it clear. I don't know, like it's really funny though. But alhamdulillah, yeah. But you can tell, like, definitely busy and stuff. So because I have friends in I haven't met them personally, but from within Facebook and stuff, I follow their stuff. They're based in Canada. And I know that Mohammed Hijab went there. He flew over to do some workshops over there.
Yeah, they did a whole campaign there.
MSAs and all that. So, alhamdulillah, I guess iERA is like really looking to sort of expand and do the dawah. And
iERA exists in 25 or so countries, as far as I know, to this day. And it's expanding constantly. So there's all these other countries where they're doing tours and whatnot. And what they generally like to do is find someone who's passionate and who's already active in the community to then carry that work. And so, expanding all the time, and especially across Africa. I think they're working in Africa, particularly Africa and South America, is really, really. It's like wow, mashallah, right?
Because there's a big Muslim community sort of expanding. I know there's a lot of Muslims for Spain, is it? Or I think there's like groups that are kind of focusing in different areas that are more they're like very minority Muslims, is there? But there's like a growing community of Muslims in those places as well. I know Spain is one example. Muslim for Latinas, I can't even remember.
Yeah, so they've particularly across like South America, they've got Honduras. I think there's a guy in Brazil. And the various other small South American countries across Latin America, and then across Africa as well. These are the only ones I've been aware of, and I'm sure there's many other ones. Like, for example, Tanzania, Kenya, Nigeria recently, and Adnan Rashid's in charge of the Africa project. So I know you've got an episode released with him soon.
Yeah, this week.
Yeah, so he does a lot of work there, and he's got a lot of contacts, mashallah, and he's doing really, really good work there. And it's really, I think it does two things. One, of course, it shares Islam, but then also counters the sort of Christian missionary, or that they're really sort of more aggressive approach in those areas.
So is there like a conflict between you? You're trying to study all the Christian organizations, trying to get the tactics and kind of either destroy it or implement it, or
no. So
how does that work?
I've heard these things like, oh, look, you guys are doing missions, quote unquote. I don't like that word.
I've heard a few comments on Facebook.
I've seen that online, and so for example, when Abdulah Hamimi puts out those videos that we've gone to where was it, Papua New Guinea, and we've gone to the Amazon rainforest and that sort of stuff. Yeah. And then some people try and connect that to like Christian missionary work. And it's totally different, right? Because Christian missionary work, firstly, had very, very had certain objectives, right? Not just social, but political, and not just religious, and operated in a particular method, right? It wasn't just to promote the religion; it was to promote Christianity to achieve certain means, yeah. And it wasn't done like as a straight out dawah sort of thing. Okay, here we Christians embrace. So the way that I've understood it is that the approach is totally different. It might resemble, in the sense that you're going out to sort of foreign isolated places, but that's it, right? Yeah. In terms of, so it's not trying to replicate anything. I think it's, spreading the dawah, right? Yeah. You need to reach out to these people, and when we can, and across Africa, especially the way they operate, is really, really interesting. And of course, they're on a level where their funding is incomparable to how Muslims fund it. So, but despite that, this work is spreading really, really well, and there's been a lot of progress. So, I sort of think there's a bit of a false equivalence to that sometimes. But many people see the great work for what it is, right?
Yeah. I think we kind of forget that there's, I guess, like if Muslims are sort of living in the West, we tend to sort of congregate together in communities, and we just think, like, yeah, this is a Muslim community, but then we kind of forget that, you know, there's places around the world that many people haven't even heard Islam probably. And we know even the Sahaba died in like random places in the world that we wouldn't imagine, like China, for example, and all that, where they were trying to, you know, spread the Dawah. So we kind of forget as well that we'd sort of have like, I'm not saying everyone should do it, but we forget that there needs to be something done on that front. So alhamdulillah, you know, iERA is doing
yeah, very, very careful with that.
Alhamdulillah, but iERA is doing like amazing works on that front. So even like just the fact that how long have they been? They've been in the game for a while. They're probably one of the earliest sort of Dawah organizations in the West.
Yeah, so but even then, it's
they're still going strong. It's not like, and not only that, it's because like iERA, they're spreading the Dawah, doing all that, but they engage intellectually. And all so, you know, you have Hamza Totsis and Mahdi Jab, etc., that are actually like not just doing Dawah in the sense of spreading Islam, but also engaging intellectually with arguments and critiques and all that. So I think Speaker's Corner is a good example of this.
So I think there's two components of that, yeah. And I think this is sometimes like, that is the Dawah, in the sense that the two components is one, empowering existing Muslims, right? Particularly living in liberal secular societies. And sort of, you know, there's that empowering Muslims. And then there's, of course, and in empowering Muslims, it's responding to atheist contentions, responding to other religious groups, whether other religions and whatnot. And then the second branch of it is actually just sharing the message of Islam. Yeah, because sometimes you can get so preoccupied with countering other things that you actually forget to share the message of Islam.
Yeah.
So what?
That's true.
So what? You broke down the Trinity. So what? You broke down the problem of evil. But then what? What happens then? Yeah.
Who cares? Like, you know, David Hume's arguments or whatever.
Like, you need to take that next step. So to be a sort of a holistic, comprehensive approach.
100%.
And so of course, the engagement is on multiple levels. So what I like to do in the short time that I've been involved with iERA, although we were sort of carrying Dawah in different, sort of in a less formal approach before this, so with the workshops empower, the discussions and dialogues respond, and then of course there's other programs and campaigns that share the message. So it's sort of like, it's not just this one-dimensional approach, and sort of different languages to speak, more or less. I mean, in a way, with different audiences and different contexts.
Yeah, because even we know that people, like, there's different types of people in the sense that there are the more intellectual types that are want to engage things very critically and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So they're not just going to settle with, I'm just going to become Muslim because, you know, the Quran is true, this and that. They just want to go down this like rabbit hole of just like no end. So that's why you have people like Muhammad Hijab and Hamza Totsis kind of engaging with people like that. But for the most part, most people don't even know like Islam. So you got to you got to package the fundamentals in a way where it's like, I guess, palatable in the modern age, and sort of have a proper discussion of, you know, why Islam's the truth, essentially. So it's about keeping it simple in that sense as well. And I think people are more receptive on that front, like if you keep it simple, because that's how most people operate anyway. They just want to see like good people. They want to be nice. They want to see like, you know, these guys are nice and understanding and stuff. At the same time, you know, they have this message of Islam, and that's the thing that they probably haven't heard of before. So it's about packaging it in a right way.
I think that point is really important, because when we're doing this, I think there's sometimes you forget that the human being is multidimensional, right? It's not, we just think of the people who are doing Dawah too, as in other human beings, of course, as like this rational person. That all you have to do is throw in your premises,
smash the
and
Trinity.
Then the conclusion comes out, and it's just like, ding,
compute, like a computer or something.
And so that's not how human beings operate. That's not how psychology
100%.
operates.
Even those intellectual types are very emotional. They're hanging to something like deep down, but they'll kind of code in rational thought and argument and stuff like that.
And that's fine for like, and this is what I'm saying is that speaking certain languages to certain contexts. So for example, you'll speak that highly intellectual stuff with in that context. So you're having a discussion with at a university, or your audience is more in tune in that particular way, and then you're speaking to the person on the street, or your friend, or your colleague, and I think this is a particular area where we sort of need to infuse a little bit more into our dawah. And this is the concept of spirituality, right? Particularly
Sufism.
we
don't use that in iERA, right?
Your words, not mine. I don't know what you're talking about, right? Okay. Don't get me in trouble. So what I mean by spirituality is that living in a secular society, particularly, this idea of spirituality is seen as a really backwards, foreign, a leap of faith, just like you're trying to fill an empty void. Yeah. Or it's seen as sort of the monk type sort of thing. But the thing is that when we're sharing the message of Islam, this message of Islam is not just intellectual, right? It's connecting. Our task here is to transform the mind and also the heart. Yeah. And so there's a connection, right? The heart is not always convinced through just arguments, right? You really need to engage with people and connect with them. And there's multiple ways you can do that, right? Through their experience, through experiences they've had, through rational thought, through their emotions. There's so many. Of course, through our own morals and behavior that's receptive to them. And so there's multiple ways you can engage with somebody. And sometimes we try and focus, and this is because people watch too much YouTube, I think. They try and just focus
Hopefully
on...
Boys in the Cave YouTube channel. So it's all right.
That's the only one.
And iERA, of course.
Yeah, of course. 100%. Yeah.
Only those two.
Right here, take that. No, that's what I mean, right? In the sense that if you want to engage with somebody, we have to engage with multiple components of their human beingness, if that makes sense, right? Which it doesn't, but anyway. But yeah, so you want to engage with their emotions, you want to engage with their rationality, you want to engage with opening up spirituality, you want to hit their mind and their heart at the same time, and then bring that together. This is something that I'd like to sort of contribute to, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. Like even it's really interesting that I feel that this kind of plays into the evolution of Dawah, and iERA has been part of that journey. Like I think I talked about this with Subh Ahmed in our first episode we did with him. And
you can click right here to see the first episode.
Links in the show notes, inshallah. But he was mentioning that before there was this whole I don't know if iERA was propagating or not, but early on during the iERA days, around that time was the whole science of the Quran, the scientific miracles of the Quran, all that kind of was propagated. So that's kind of how we showed Islam the truth and stuff. And now we kind of evolved into intellectual arguments, but even those intellectual arguments were very kind of not to the high standard, but now it's like a very good standard, alhamdulillah. Mm-hmm. And we can see that in Speaker's Corner, etc. And now we've covered that kind of rational component, but now we've delved into this whole spirituality, not Sufism. We'll call it spirituality, inshallah.
No one's got a monopoly on spirituality.
That's true.
Except Sufism.
I don't. And so there's that component that we've kind of lacked in the early days of Dawah as well. Yeah. I don't know if we lacked it or we just didn't articulate it as part of our sort of reasons as to why we can portray Islam as the true religion. You know what I mean?
I think one of the and I'll just take a stab, but one of the reasons is that we've actually engaged with philosophical foundations more, right? Where we've been able to sort of, the evolution has helped articulate our own philosophical foundations with others, right? So in relation to others, and so. For example, you mentioned that idea of, and some people still carry this for many reasons, but anyway, I won't digress. So the scientific miracles, yeah. So the idea was to show, and of course, the word scientific miracles is a total oxymoron because there's no miracles in science. The whole point of science is to explain the natural world. So if you can explain it through science, then it's not a miracle, right? So anyway, we'll leave that for another time. Maybe if I can another invite with Boys in the Cave, we can explain that. Now, so we were trying to fuse science with Islam, and then we went to this bit where I was like, actually, what about this? What about we question the basis of science? Yeah, the foundations of what science is and the philosophy it's underpinned by. Yeah. And I'll throw it out there. And I know some people who have got a science background will get triggered by this, but science is philosophy, right? It's got philosophical foundations. That's what I mean. It's a way of thinking.
Of course, 100%. It's ideological at one point as well, especially how we seem like, Neil deGrasse Tyson and all those kind of figures in the community, in the world, essentially now, they sort of propagate, like, I guess they take science as their holistic worldview, and they don't even acknowledge, they might acknowledge, I don't know, but they don't acknowledge the kind of, as you're alluding to, the underpinnings of science and the philosophical assumptions that come with that, which don't get addressed too much, I guess.
I think science isn't necessarily ideological in that sense.
Yeah, in itself, but I'm saying people that propagate in this modern day teams, they paint science as a sort of like, you have to think in that way.
And that ideology is scientism,
yeah.
So what they're speaking is scientism. They're not they're pushing unsubstantiated. They're making unsubstantiated ideological decisions. Yeah. So for example, being hardcore naturalists. Yeah. They're just taking that for a given. Yeah, without questioning it or addressing that to begin with. Yeah. So that's a huge assumption. Yeah, or an empiricist. They're not asking those questions. They're just taking it as a given. Like, this is just right. It's right because it's right, kind of thing. And people see, and what I say that what triggered people when you say science is philosophy is because people see science as doing and philosophy is thinking.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no this like rigid demarcation of the other of either. And maybe that's just because that's how it's taught, right? Like even at uni, when someone does a science degree, just for the sake of packaging it in that way, there's like this 1 unit on philosophy of science, and it's like an elective, right?
Yeah. Well,
so no one, I'm going to say no one, but it's not like people don't care. Well, it's not taught as in let's the scientific method or the philosophy that science is based on.
I think people use the argument, sorry, just to add quickly, is that they explain it away by saying, look, we do science, it works in the real world, and that's it.
Yeah, that's what Dawkins says. Yeah, that's exactly what Richard Dawkins says, and it works. Yeah, and look at you guys. You guys didn't have science, and you guys didn't have airplanes or something like that. It's just like, what? That's anachronistic. Yeah, it's just like, no, that's a really bad false analogy, right? But yeah, so I think part of the education in the Muslim community that there isn't that it's getting people to think deeper on the assumptions things are based upon, right? And that's at the core of philosophy, right? Thinking, right? Thinking and I mean, it's not ultra skepticism, because sometimes some people, and this is the fear, if you get into philosophy, you're just going to become a huge skeptic and you're going to become an atheist and all that sort of stuff, and this is a huge rabbit hole that just like slippery slope. I don't think it necessarily has to go that way, particularly if somebody is well informed with Islamic tradition, but it's an interesting sort of development.
And that's how I guess the the Dawah sort of went to that sort of level, which was very needed in the community, because I felt that a lot of people just could not compute, like, science says this, Islam says that, there's a contradiction or this and that. So they couldn't, people, like the lay people, like, I guess, even like someone from like myself, I just kind of, you had to really, really rely on your iman, because even though you had to deal with those questions at school, you just kind of, let it slide. You're just like, look, I still believe, like, when I was in high school, like, people who don't believe in God are dumb anyway, so so my iman even though I wasn't fully practicing, that was kind of my iman. So then that kind of overcame those sort of questions I didn't really have to deal with until I realized that, okay, now it's actually a serious problem, that people think there's this dichotomy, you know what I mean, between science, Islam and religion. And they'll, like, the classic, like, I think it was interesting, like in high school I was taught this, is that, look at Galileo, he was persecuted for preaching truth, and so look at what look at what religion does to science, or people who are trying to be truth seekers, so therefore religion, they don't say explicitly religion is terrible and this and that, but that's a line of thinking you're forced to think, you know what I mean?
But did you notice this, but that's in relation to the Christian history.
Exactly.
So religion, and this is how it is in sort of these like in these Western countries, right, where it's dominated, it's not dominated, but there used to be more or less a Christian majority at some stage, and whatever it was. But people see religion, and the only thing they know about religion is Christianity. So when there's a conflict with Christianity, it's like throw religion out the window, right? And so I've from, this is just totally experiential. So is that generally that's what happens with Christians. they lose faith in Christianity and they become atheist. Right.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
there's, and then, or some of them become Hare Ram, Hare Krishna peoples because
super insane spiritual. Like they go down that route. Like, oh well, there's something here, and then they go. I've seen like a lot of like white people, for example, go into like India and like with those like what do you call the gurus of like the Hindu? Anyways, like
I went to, there was a conference in the southeast. Like this is probably 4 or 5 years ago. And they told me that's like some Buddhist conference, and we were setting up for a festival with some of the work that I do somewhere else, and we had to come there the day before, and the conference was the day before, and I'm like, a Buddhist festival, you know, a lot of brown people here. I'm telling you, I only saw white people.
Oh really? Because it's like a new age thing, Buddhism.
Yeah, so like sort of new age spirituality.
Yeah,
and so that's what I'm talking about. People lose faith and they lose. They see the material world. They've done all. Basically, and I think this is, I sort of will go on a tangent here, but I think it's important. So, linking up atheism with nihilism, all right? And I got thinking about that a little bit more through actually some of, Sabul recommended this guy called, if I'm allowed to give a shout out on a YouTube channel.
We don't care.
The Pondering Soul. Check
I know
him out.
He follows me on Twitter.
Is he? Oh wow!
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Life goals hashtag, huh? So he was that brother is a revert, and he was an atheist and nihilist, and I think he did an honors thesis on it. And I only got to listen to a little bit of his journey. He's got this whole YouTube playlist on it, and I really want to go into more. But I think this is something where we don't really focus enough, where the practical implications of an atheist worldview, right? And I noticed this in the city. We did this, and I particularly highlighted this in the city recently with our Australian Open campaign. I was surprised to bump into quite a few of these Hare Ram guys or Hare Krishnas.
Really? Yeah.
And then when you listen to their stories, that's what it is. They didn't believe in God. They don't believe in God for whatever reason. They've done everything under the sun. Drugs, alcohol, girls, guys, everything. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. They can be girl or guy, whatever.
Oh, okay, right.
I don't mean it that way.
Yeah.
You already had Muhammad Taba on the
Yeah,
show,
we had that conversation already. We're not homophobes.
All right.
I'm just saying, like,
you're gonna get me in trouble.
Anyway,
you're gonna get me in trouble. Okay.
Anyways, it goes. Yeah.
So the point is they basically, with their atheist worldview comes a nihilist worldview, right? That the world is meaningless. And it creates this huge empty void, and there's this pursuit to constantly fill this bucket with a massive hole in it, and you realize this, and then so when you're engaging with these people, you don't need to throw in the argument of dependency to them or give them the Kalam cosmological argument. They want spiritual fulfillment, right? And Islam has got a huge
subhanallah.
Islam's got a huge tradition of spirituality, right? So
shout out to Sufis.
Yeah. Hashtag not. So the way you engage with them is you don't have to convince them intellectually. You want to interact with their heart and demonstrate this. And sometimes this is where it highlighted for me a lot. I was like, wait a second, we need to re-engineer our conversations with some people. I mean, of course, particularly with these ones, and they were actually quite fascinated to know that, hey, whoa.
We're not terrorist jihadis. Whoa, we got some spirituality to it.
There's that too. Yeah, it's we have reasons to believe, but the idea of the fitra in the human being, and how we nourish, if I use the word soul in Islam, that's what people are seeking in a sort of, particularly given in these Western countries where the rise of atheism has only really, I don't know how many decades has it been, so how many generations has it been? And you really feel the full impact of it, as generations pass. Yeah. And people come to realize that, what it really is and what the real value of it is. And anyway, I'm trying to say is that let's infuse that into our dawah.
It's about analyzing the society at the moment and seeing what people's situation is and actually like seeing how they'll be receptive to dawah. Because as you said, if you're going down the route of rational arguments to these two people, like Like whatever, like they don't care. Like that's not even like it's simple sales. Like because I'd done sales in the past and everything.
Yeah.
In sales, they teach like you
by
get
the way, just to cut you off, I don't like to. It is a lot of sales and marketing.
Yeah.
But I don't, if you make that analogies, people.
People get. I understand that, but in the sense of I'm deriving principles from what I learned in sales and kind of applying myself. Because at the end of the day, Islam, like knowledge is all from Allah, right?
Sharing
so
a
it's
message.
about exactly. So like. What I learned in sales, I wasn't really into the Dawah then, but when I was doing in sales is that to get persons, the main step is to also like your first step should be to gain their interest or their attention, then their interest. Yeah. So if you're hammering like an atheist who, if you can, they'll have your interest if you appeal to what they need. You get what I mean? You'll suddenly have the interest. You get what I mean?
So with that is listening. Yeah. So like, I know we watch YouTube a lot. Alhamdulillah, mashallah, with Speakers Corner. Yeah. And I was listening to the Speakers Corner. Shout out to brother Shamsi, by the way.
Yeah.
He's like, it's literally just screaming at each other. Maybe with just one video. Yeah. And context and all that sort of stuff, whatever, right? Entertainment and context, and that's a particular context. Yeah. But like, when you're engaging with people, we have to know what, we have to listen and ask questions and hear their story, yeah. And then so it's not like people are this pre-programmed robot where we just throw a generic formula to them and then let's just see what sticks, right? Yeah. But like these are where the genuine, sincere dawah conversations happen. Like for example, when you're with your friends or with your colleagues or when you're doing street dawah or that sort of stuff, yeah. Sometimes when we just see all the the boom stuff on YouTube, that sounded so packy, didn't it? Yeah, sorry. We think that's what the dawah is, yeah. And so I've seen it where people just like literally verbatim taking or thereabouts taking a Speaker's Corner clip and then. They're talking to, say, a Christian, yeah, and rather than trying to engage with the guy, they're like just literally like going,
smash him,
and I'm like, chill, man, chill, like give him a chance.
Yeah.
It's not and that's where you have to like take your ego out of it, yeah. And we want to connect with hearts and minds.
That's actually like I think what's sort of skewed our perception of Dawah is that we've got to think about converting. Like it's about planting a seed, so you can't really think of this conversation they're gonna go home and look into Islam and then suddenly they'll convert like a week later. Like it might be I don't know, it might be even maybe they might do shahada on the deathbed or something. Like we don't know the person because I listen to a lot of Gary Vee stuff and he's just like, how can you, and I've kind of tried to implement a lot in my life, is that how can you judge people, even your own mom doesn't know everything about you, so how can you judge like a guy off the street, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's about like kind of having the best opinion about the person and just doing your role and your part. And as he said, always like use sort of the idea of getting their interest. And we know that in the society, there's, atheists, nihilists that need some sort of spirituality. So you convey that to them, you do your role, and then you kind of let it be, because you might agree to disagree. I don't even know. But why I say this approach is because when I looked a bit more into, I guess, how Rasul had interactions with people, it wasn't, hey, God is like, obviously he would have said God is one and stuff in certain situations, but at times it's like if he interacts with a non-Muslim, that's not his like first go-to kind of point. It's also perhaps I think once or a few times he did a miracle, or like, obviously we can't do that now, but I'm saying like that certain things happen in different things happen in different situations, right? So you got to kind of cater to the moment. Like some guy, I think there was a story of a guy, he didn't convert. He believed in Islam and stuff, but he didn't convert because he still wanted to drink alcohol or something.
Yeah.
And it's not like Rasulullah came and berated him and this and that. I think he ended up converting anyway, like a few years down the line. So it's like you can't like force sort of what you want the outcome to be. You just kind of do your role, because at the end of the day, it's kind of ties in with spirituality in the sense that we only go off by intention, right? Like we're only judged by intention, not the outcome, right? So our role is to sort of make sure we have the purest heart and try to control try to do what we can to the best of our ability without trying to force the outcome, but at the same time control what we can and then let it be, essentially. You get what I mean? But
yeah, so I'd like to describe it like as a spectrum, yeah? And of course, that whole spectrum is best encapsulated in our example of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, yeah? And so he was the best at, in terms of perfect in engaging with people in the right way, to the right person, of the different caliber of, for example, the intellectual societies of society, the politicians, I guess, the influentials, right down to the guys on the street kind of thing, yeah, and his relatives, and so he was able to capture a crowd at so like multi-dimensional, yeah, a multi-level in that way, and so that's what we seek to emulate, yeah. And so sometimes we move away from that, and he was able to speak different languages more or less, yeah, with different people, yeah, according to what was more receptive to them.
One quick example I want to add is, I think, like with Abu Sufyan, when he converted, I think Rasul from the war booty gave him like millions of dollars, and people are like, what the hell, like we've been with I think the Ansar were like, look, we've hustled with you in wars and this and that. He didn't give us this much money. Like, what's going on, right? But then he explained, like, he articulated, like, for them, like, Rasulullah obviously loves them a lot and stuff, so he reassured that. But at the same time, it's like, different strokes with different folks, essentially. And that actually gets him over. There's a wisdom behind it. So it's like, there's that. So it's about speaking different language to different people, and he was able to emulate that. But I just wanted to throw that in.
Thanks, bro. And there's another bit where sometimes we simply isolate our dawah. And I'm telling you this, the Prophet, peace be upon him, was the best example, yeah? And he showed us so many dimensions of that example through his life, right? Even when he's Mecca and he's in Medina, when we went to seek nusra with different tribes and that sort of stuff. And sometimes we reduce our dawah to just one thing. And that one thing is generally just good manners and behavior. And that's really important. That's incredibly important. In fact, that when we're having conversations with people, and this is like a marketing thing, yeah? People can read you pretty quickly. They can see if you're a sincere person, if you're just there to have an argument, if you're just there to just shove something down someone's throat, or if you're worth a conversation. Is it worth my time having a chat with you, right? And you really notice this in street dawah, right? Because people are walking past and everyone's busy in the city. Yeah. So like you got to give them a reason to stop, right? Sometimes, anyway, that aside, sometimes we reduce our dawah to simply good manners and behavior, and that's really, really important. But there comes a point where, good manners and behavior, mashallah, we could have that as a Muslim, and Christians can do that, Buddhists can do that, Hindus can do that, right? And comes a stage where we need to sort of take the next step as well and build beyond that, right? And so, yes, you're a Muslim and you're doing really good things because you're a Muslim, but you need to make that known. Yeah. Otherwise, if you're just a really nice, so I think sometimes we need to take that step as well, where we don't reduce our dawah to just one thing, and we try and encapsulate more of that spectrum, where our good manners and behavior is then also coupled by our good speech, and our speech of sharing the message of Islam. And sometimes it can be done directly, sometimes it can be done a bit more subtly. But there's no set formula, right? This is where the wisdom comes in. That every scenario is best according to that person's ijtihad, if I could use that word.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, so I guess it's about having the hikmah as well into when it comes to dealing with the situation in front of you. Absolutely. I wanted to ask a random thought though. It was really good that we discussed the evolution, but have you had any like crazy dawah experience where, I don't know, some guy went like crazy and you flipped tables? I don't know, like
okay, let me think.
Any kind of crazy experiences like that, or not really?
No, not yet. Unfortunately, unfortunately, I don't know. Not yet. You get in some heated discussions sometimes, but
my worst actually. I'll let you think. I'll just say my one. Okay, it wasn't really bad, but first one moment that came to my mind is like I had this long dialogue with some lady at the at uni and stuff. I was at the MSA tables and stuff. And I remember like we're just going back and forth about rules in Islam and stuff. And she was just like, oh, if Islam didn't permit women to wear hijab, I think there'd be a lot more Muslims. This is such a funniest thing.
This is a white lady. I was just like, that's really funny. But I was like, you don't have to be Muslim to like, it's not like to be a Muslim, you have to wear the hijab. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a ruling you have to follow, but it's not like Islam's about your Aqidah theology. But that was just a funny moment. I'm just like, okay.
I can't think of anything. So, there's some weird things that like people presume about Islam or about Muslims. And this is what you don't want to reflect, right? Because people sometimes when you engage with somebody, they'll try and tell you what you believe, right? As though like they've read your.
Okay.
I'm like, and this is I find this a lot for some reason with Christians. I'm not sure if I can say that, but we're all good.
It's a safe space.
We're all chill. No, because I don't want to seem in that particular way. But anyway, because it's the boys in the cave, we can do that. Yeah. So they tell you what you believe, and I'm like, no, I don't. You can just ask me what I believe. And sometimes Muslims do that with others as well.
That's true. We do.
And they think that every atheist has like 5 or 6 beliefs.
Like
the Aqidah is like, and same with Christians, right? Even Christians, like for example, the Australian Open campaign, there was a Mormon missionaries of all places, right? Mormons coming around, and of course you've got your Jehovah's Witnesses and that sort of stuff. But they're a little bit different, in a different way. Yeah, they're a little bit different to other Christians. So it's like
more like, to the point hardcore, like
no. So they believe in different things. So they believe
I know
Joseph Smith and.
I thought you meant more referring to the style of Dawah, essentially.
And their style of Dawah. So this is we used to have a Mormon back in uni, and I remember people used to make Mormon jokes, and we'd laugh, and anyway, I never understood them, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I've got this Mormon missionary guy asking me, and he said something really interesting to me. Basically he gave me a spiel, and then asked him, okay, so why is Mormonism true? And
cut to the chase. Why is it true? I don't want to know your name or how are you. Right. None of the spiritual stuff we discussed before.
Good afternoon, Billy. No. We've had a discussion with him, right? And then I'm just cutting to the chase for the sake of this discussion. And then why is it true? And then basically because of Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon. And the Book of Mormon's true because it came to Joseph Smith. And I'm like, okay, it's a bit of a circular argument. All right. And then it's like, okay, so how do I know that is the Book of Mormon the Word of God? And he's like, yeah, it is. I'm like, okay. Well, how do I know that? Is there like a falsification test? Like, how do I test that?
Yeah.
Right. And then basically he said to me, well, you need to read the Book of Mormon and then make a sincere dua to yourself, to God, to show you that the Book of Mormon is the truth. So I'm like, okay, well, so their approach, what that showed to me is their approach is purely emotional and quote unquote spiritual.
Yeah.
It's not intellectual at all.
Yeah.
Right? And of course, this kid was born into Mormonism. It's not like he did that, right?
Yeah.
And then anyway, the way you flip it is like, well, you should do that with the Quran as well, right?
Yeah. Just, of course.
Ask God to show you the truth.
And but we don't like we can, but it's like it's not.
It's a weak approach, right?
Yeah. But they would get a lot of converts and stuff, right? Mormons in general. So wouldn't that approach work?
I don't know. I don't know whether they get a lot of converts. But anyway, the whole point of being a missionary was to do that, right?
Yeah.
They just walk around the city like random guys wearing suits for some reason, right?
Yeah.
Like seriously, white shirts and a suit.
Yeah.
It's a bit scary. Maybe they blend into the corporate crowd. But anyway, you hear all sorts of funny things that like people believe things that make no sense. And they don't even try and make sense of it to you.
Like, well,
like for example, even with the Hari Krishna guys, right? I'll tell you there's this God here and there's this God here, and it's like it sounds like Greek mythology, right?
Yeah.
And they'll not give you any intellectual argument for why that's the case. It just is, right? Because it said it somewhere. They said it somewhere in one of their books or one of their gurus said it, and it's like scratching your head and be like, how do I engage with this person?
Do you think like it's better to not read on the physical level in the sense of just seeing what they're saying, or rather try to engage what's underneath? Because from my perspective, I'll say what's underneath is the nafs, in the sense that they just want to follow the nafs, so they're just saying things like that to kind of so that they don't have a reason to change their lives that they're living at the moment. You get what I mean? Like some people would do that.
Yeah, some of them, but I think it'd be unwise to make that assumption like as a generalization. So then like a lot of people are genuinely seeking the truth, right? And people get to the stage where there's barriers, in their mind, right? There's obviously intellectual barriers, there's emotional barriers, and there's spiritual barriers, and all those barriers, and you want to be able for them to overcome that, so for example, they might, the argument for God or the existence of one God makes sense, but there's other things that they need to comprehend or they don't understand, and that sort of stuff. And some people take a little bit longer to get there. So what I like to do, and I think this is something that I'm sure many Dawah places do, and I hope they do, is you have this opportunity to have a discussion with somebody anywhere, whether it's on the plane, on the bus, at a hotel or whatever, and it's following up that discussion, right? So we have that discussion, that first discussion where we talk about something, and then it's not just like, that's it, brother. I've given you the message of Islam. It's up to you to decide. Take it or leave it. It's like, bro, chill out, bro. Like you're gonna transform his whole life in like 5 seconds. Like no, And so, if there's something to work with, well, hey, bro, let's what's your name? What's your number? Let's catch up for a coffee or something like that. And over time, the discussion evolves. That adds a little bit of humanity into the conversation as well, right? You're not just this salesperson, or robot or whatever, that sort of stuff.
That's the point. Like you've got to just live. You just got to be a part of the life, just as a mate who embodies sort of Islam and can answer the questions that person may have when it comes to religion as well.
But see with this, you don't have to be like this Dawah carrier character. Yeah, like for example, like there's this action figure of Dawah, like quote unquote Dawah man. No, I said, you know what I mean, right? Like this is something everyone can do, and I'm sure everyone already does. And maybe this is something we can like hone in and improve on. But the point is that we can empower all Muslims to do this. Right, because we already do it as Muslims, right? We're questioning about our identity. We're questioning about why we do things.
Especially for Muslim sisters, like if you're wearing the hijab, you're straight away, like already a symbol of Islam, essentially, like in society as well. So
and so you can already do that with people who are close to you or people who aren't, and just continuing those discussions with people. Now, of course, there's always going to be, those hardcore ideological Islamophobes, racists, and that sort of stuff. And that's another discussion. I want to clarify. I'm not saying that simply, doing Dawah, quote unquote, is going to just transform everyone's minds, and the whole world's going to be like this nirvana or something like that, right? But engaging with people is very important, and how we engage with them, that needs to be done with wisdom, with knowledge, and sort of a more comprehensive acumen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. It's just about, I guess it kind of plays into how the Dawah was. It's evolving in that sense, and it's not seeing that. Like, I guess the takeaway point can be also like not seeing them or not trying to be like a robot, essentially. And
that's important. I think that's really important. Yeah.
And that's, I guess, what we've made the mistake perhaps in the past. Would you say that? Like, that's something...
Yeah. So, for example, like, let's just take a straw man example, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to share the message with Islam of like, I'm a Christian, or let's say you use Christian, for example. You believe in X, Y, Z, this is wrong, the Bible's wrong, the Trinity is wrong, or even with an atheist, it'd be like, you can't prove this and explain that. It's like really confrontational. Like I can imagine, like from us, put yourself in those shoes, somebody, and this actually happens in the Dawah table a lot. People do the opposite. They'll be like, you believe in this, you believe in this, you believe in this, you believe in that, and it's just like, chill, let's get out of my face, man. Let's get out of my face. Like, you don't have to be here. Like, and so engaging with people, I think is one, people are multidimensional, they're not robots, and two, finding the best way to engage with that person and continuing that engagement, and our role and our only KPIs with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those KPIs is essentially...
that's so deep, bro.
Is it?
SubhanAllah.
Oh,
bro, that's definitely like a t-shirt. Bro, that should be a t-shirt. Do you use that phrase a lot?
I've only made that up right now.
Really? That's amazing, bro.
Okay. Well, anyway.
The KPI was with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bro. SubhanAllah, bro. This is next level.
Well, I mean, what I meant by that is that it's not like, you mentioned that idea of conversions, yeah? Our task is to convey in the best way, compassionately, intelligently. That's the iERA tagline. Share Islam, and that's all we have to do. Let's continue doing that, right? And the results, of course, naturally the results are going to be people embracing Islam through the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? But it's not in the guidance is not in our hands, right?
Yeah.
We're like a means for that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, and this is the thing with when I tell the brothers this, and I heard it at UMA, and I was like, man, mashallah, this. But hashtag to the UMA guys, bro. Or shout out to the UMA guys. They've got a really, really good team going there, and it's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selects people for this task. Yeah, that this task is the task of the prophets, essentially. Right, it's a prophetic mission, as we call it, to share Islam to people, right? And this is what the prophets did, and so he, if I can say it in a metaphorical way, he handpicked, without getting into Aqidah debates, for another podcast. He essentially handpicked you for this incredibly honorable task, right? And this is what happens. And sometimes I say jokingly when it comes to like when we do a Dawah table, and like we have this huge group of like 20 people, or 30 people, and then when it comes to the day, there's like 5 people. And I was like, it is what it is. Everyone has issues. Everyone has challenges and that sort of stuff and stuff going on. That's not a problem. But I'm just like saying that what an honor it is that you've been given. You're here right now doing this.
Definitely.
It's not some haphazard reason. There's a real purpose.
I agree.
And you have and it's essentially a goal. Like I actually said this at one of the workshops, and it was another one of those. No one turned it into a t-shirt yet, though. That it's almost like okay, I'll use it, but please cut me some slack on it. It's almost like a pyramid scheme, right? let me explain. Are we getting to the thick of pyramid schemes with the halal or haram?
No,
the only way it's like that is, I mean, in terms of it's that you're influencing somebody who then influences somebody else, who then influences somebody else, who then influences somebody else. Yeah, imagine that going on for an infinite regress. Yeah, and you're getting a share of all the rewards.
Subhanallah.
Right? So I mean, that's the only similarity. There's no pyramid scheme in Islam. Okay, totally haram.
That's actually subhanAllah, that's very beautiful. Like in the sense you talking before about purpose, like even with I can definitely relate with like starting Boys in the Cave, just the whole journey of it, be it the early guests that we would never fathom that we would do a conversation with, to even my journey into the deen, in the sense that I think I've said this, I don't know if it was on the podcast, I've probably said this a few times, or even on Facebook or something, but it's the fact that even when I was in high school, alhamdulillah, like I had Muslim friends, I was still in touch with the deen, but I wasn't like practicing. It was just kind of like a side thing. At times it could be an inhibition for what things you want to do, but at the same time it's still there because you realize, it's good to have a traditional kind of vibe. It's good to have to follow a sort of tradition, you know what I mean? So that's why I was Muslim, but not fully practicing, right? Anyways, so when I was with my Muslim friends at like high school, for example, I remember my friend overheard me, I overheard my friend telling my other friend that, out of all the Muslim friends at this school, is like Tanzim's the least likely to be practicing.
Okay, really?
Yeah, subhanAllah, right?
Oh, okay.
And now look at this now, subhanAllah. Like it's like it's not meant to be a flex or something, but it's
can we get him on the show?
Can we oust him? But you get what I mean, in the sense that like who could have imagined? So there's definitely like a plan or purpose, in the sense that like even just the uni that I went to, I just happened to fall into, even my journey in the MSA scene, that I was still the same. I wasn't really too practicing. I just happened to fall into an MSA crowd because I knew a few guys there, and then I wasn't even like I was a pretty dumb kid, right? I'm still pretty dumb, but little bit smarter than how I was before, in the sense of like reading like history and all that. I had no idea. I just hated history, like in high school, everything now. But so I have like an interest in that. I read a lot. Try to read, not a lot, but that sort of interest just suddenly like flipped. Like I had all this interest like suddenly when I was in those circles with Muslims, and alhamdulillah I became practicing eventually, right? Because you just happen to fall into the right people. So it's like there's always a purpose to all this, you know what I mean?
Can I say one thing about that, right? And we describe this, and mashallah, very inspirational. Is hashtag inspiration porn. Tanzim. Yeah. If I can use that word.
Clip the this part of the podcast, inshallah. Go viral.
Okay. So what I wanted to say about that is that like when we talk about it, it's like, okay, this happened and this happened, and it just so happened that this happened and just so happened. But you know how purposeful that is? And when we step back, yeah. all it took was, and if we go back down to the chain of dependency, if you want to call it that. Sorry for using this analogy.
This is amazing.
But the point is like, for example, somebody started something, yeah?
Yeah.
And he did something and it influenced somebody. And that influenced somebody else. And that influenced somebody else. And that influenced somebody else doing something else. And it just goes back. It goes everywhere. And then there is mashallah, there's a young little Tanzim. Mashallah is not little, but anyway. Tanzim sitting somewhere there. And that chain somehow hits you, right? That wasn't an accident, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, for the sake of our comprehension, it sounds like, oh my God, like, what are the chances? Yeah. But because we don't have the, totality of the knowledge, yeah?
Yeah.
We can't foresee we can't see the past and we can't foresee the future. But all it takes is a few people to make and make some positive engagements and certain things and positively impact different people. And this is where our Dawah is as well, right? Somebody might not accept the message of Islam, and that's fine. It's probably but you influence them. You get them thinking about something, and then something happens in their life, and they think about something, and just keeps going back and forth. And even in the Muslim community, right, our dawah is not just focused with just non-Muslims, right? It's empowering the Muslims, our own,
yeah, of course,
our own youth, yeah,
very important.
And so,
shout out to Tablighi Jamaat.
Oh my God, I'm so much trouble after this podcast. What is this? Can we mention H2 as well? But. See how that there's a domino effect, and just because we might be in that chain of dominoes somewhere, like that's not an accident, bro. And the fact that like even with, and I'm not trying to say this to suck up to you, right? But like even with the podcast, yeah, you're reaching out certain people, yeah, different people, and of course people on a spectrum of where they are with their iman, and you're making that little dent in that thing, and then another dent, and then. SubhanAllah, you probably see stories 20 years later. Oh no, there was one Brandon Brown guy in Boys of the Cave. He used to be the host. I can't remember his name, but he said something and it got me thinking. And then 20 years later, something happened, and
SubhanAllah. So, that's I guess definitely like in the one kind of example to what you just said, it will kind of fit into what you just said, is that I have a good friend. I'm not in touch with him as much now, but I know he listens to our podcast and stuff. And he was telling me one day that he got some of his people at his workplace to tune in and stuff. It's like non-Muslims as well and stuff, and then they'll discuss and dialogue about it. I'm like, bro, subhanAllah, like it's so crazy. Yeah, like you don't know these stories. Like you just kind of put out the content, just like whatever, right? And I'm not saying saying this to flex. Like inshallah, like I literally fear, I don't want to do all this and be on the day of judgment and be like, oh, no, you're doing it for gains or the likes.
Gains. Wow.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's are you on creepy? I mean, of course, that intention is really important. And that the moment the ego comes into it, you really need to take a step back, because you're doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for you to weigh heavily on the day of judgment, for you to in your favor, and if those intentions aren't there and that sincereness isn't there, it's literally the opposite, right? It's a means for punishment, more or less, a means of holding you responsible for and there's many hadith, of how ego impacts our hereafter, and that's really, really important. And so sometimes it's like we think that, hey, we can get YouTube views or we can get likes or something like that. It's like, bro, you shouldn't be doing dawah if that's the case. Like, it's simple, right?
But that's one of the, I guess, battles that you do have to kind of encounter. At times you might get into that frame of mind. Like if you're, I don't know, something blows up and then you start worrying about, or just competing in general, maybe with other organizations or stuff, like just about, I get into that mindset sometimes as well. Like, oh, there's other people doing this now, and why isn't my stuff, getting to that level yet? I still have to do X, Y, Z. You get what I mean? But then you kind of fall into that trap of, wait, you got to take a step back and think, okay,
only KPIs are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the right time to say that, But I mean, there's a beautiful story of like the different prophets that come to at the day of judgment, and there's prophets that have like millions, hundreds and thousands of followers, and there's some with less and less and less and less, and then there's one with none, right? But they all go to Jannah, right? And so what that highlights is not that they fulfilled their responsibilities, they fulfilled their obligations, and the obligation was what? To share and convey the message. Right, the message of Islam. that's the thing. That's the task. Yeah. It's not that, okay, I've got, and this is the prophets and the messengers. Imagine that, right?
Yeah.
Imagine the hardship they went through. It wasn't like, hey, I'm just,
Can't get a job.
like first world problems, right?
Yeah.
Like this is like almost immeasurable in comparison. And if that's the moral of the story, well, that should be huge inspiration. And if we find difficulty in comprehending that, we really need to introspect in ourselves and where we are in our terms of our sincerity. Yeah. So I think that's really important.
I think that's the main thing. Like, even reminds me of, because I do listen to like a lot of Gary Vee content, and he was saying that, people are like, so people, when Gary Vee interacts with other people on social media or in person, it's like, oh, you only got to where you are because he's like a CEO of VaynerMedia. Oh, there was luck involved. And then his response is amazing. It's like, your chance of living now is, the chances of living now is 4 billion to 1. Like, you existing now, the chances of that happening was 4 billion to 1. So where do you want to play the luck game? Like, where do you want to draw that line of that, start that game of, oh, it's all luck now. You know what I mean? So he kind of comes from the angle of, self-improvement, and hustling and stuff. But
Tony Robbins kind of guy?
Tony Robbins.
Do you know who Tony Robbins is?
No. I probably might get slack. Maybe he's very popular. Is he?
Yeah, he's really big. People pay like thousands of dollars to go to his seminars. It's all about, self-improvement and like motivation and inspiration and getting people to...
Name rings a bell, yeah. But I'm more... I think I just vibe with Gary Vee more. But sure. It's a lot of like... It's interesting when people kind of speak like that, you realize like a lot of the things they're saying are very like Islamic, and you can kind of take it on board anyway. So it's like the whole idea of like... It ties in with what we're saying about purpose, right? There's a purpose to it, and trying to make the most of it and do what you can and holding to intention.
See how even like if you even with like leadership and management and like there's this whole ethos of trying to like create that purpose, and so like people who are driven by purpose they'll take the next step to do work, employees who are just there for the money, well, there's a certain way of looking at them, but see how like that idea of purpose in everything in our life, but like think about purpose at the most fundamental level, right? And so the whole concept of purpose drives human beings.
100%.
And so that's why when thinking about the whole nihilist worldview of one of the secondary impacts or conclusions of atheism, it's like there's no purpose.
That's no scary. Purpose. I don't know if they I can't like. That's one thing that I really, really like. Sometimes I honestly think about this. It's like, how can like when an atheist, like when you say that to them, they're just like, like you're just gonna you'll be nothing after. Like,
actually, I had a really good.
Do they really believe that to the like the fund, like truly, like do they truly embody that, or is it just like my sort of take on it is that procrastination is when you don't want to sort of face the situation in front of you, so you kind of divert from that and just discuss something else and kind of not tackle it head on. So when the concept of death and what's actually the reality and stuff, like if they're giving that response, are they just kind of like procrastinating and kind of not really thinking it to its fullest to really realize how bleak and dull it is? Because the way they say it's like cool and happy, I'm just like, I'm not saying this is a proof for Islam doing. I'm just curious in how do they process that kind of mindset? This and even just the chance, like we talked about luck and all that. It's like, what do you want to play this luck game and everything? And even the idea of purpose, it's like, how does that even factor in, like in this conversation? You know what I mean?
So I think there's a couple of things, and I think one of the main central things is like, and this is just part of the makeup of the human being, and in terms of the logic and rationality and how malleable it is. But what the point here is that people believe things, right? They might believe things, but they might not recognize the consequence of that belief, and so the impact of that belief, So, for example, they'll say, this is what they'll say to you, and there was a really good meme that. We have a. This is
Delio nowadays. Is progressing.
We have a very extensive meme archive at iERA, and I think Dawah memes. Someone should set that page up. Anyway, I'm not going to do that, right? Anyway, so the point is that people say there's no meaning in life, that when we die, we're just atoms and blah blah blah, and they just rearrange themselves and organic matter and whatever, But then they'll be like, the meaning of my life is to be the best engineer possible, to be the best nurse possible. It's like, well, there's no meaning in the universe or of your being, but there's meaning in you're fabricating the idea of meaning. So that the whole concept of meaning has purpose, if that makes sense. Right. So on one hand, you're saying that the world has no meaning, but then you think that the world is everything. The universe is huge, right? The universe doesn't have meaning, but then this little speck of dust in the whole universe has some sort of meaning. And so there's like this cognitive dissonance, that where you hold a belief and then you might not necessarily understand or appreciate the impact of that belief. But then you'll hold this other contradictory belief somewhere else, right? So I'll share the meme for you, if that made sense. So this is that one. There it is.
So what does it say? It says, claim universe has no meaning. Oh, so there's 2 buttons.
Yeah.
One is, it says claim universe has no meaning. I'm dictating for the audio.
By the way, we don't use memes to educate our workshop attendees. So
that wouldn't be bad though. That's a new tactic. Anyways, claim my life has meaning. And then there's a guy sweating.
Because they're both, you can't pick one or the other, right? So, does that make sense?
Oh my goodness, subhanallah. And that's, I guess, they're living with that sort of contradiction, and it's like they just live with, like, they don't, as you said, they just don't recognize it to the consequences of it. So they just kind of live with that kind of false idea of purpose in how they go about their life.
This is a lesson for Muslims as well, right? Because again, this is one of the things, like, we believe in something and then following up with that belief. So we might believe that our life has got this purpose and this, we have this viewpoint in terms of where our life is going after this life and that sort of stuff. And then the consequence of that belief is our practice.
It's amazing how Islam articulates that. It's so powerful in the sense that you have in the stages of, like, Muslims. I know Muslims that might be struggling. They kind of believe in Islam, but they don't do the actions. They will be judged according to the day of judgment. But if you compare it with someone that's going about, doing the hard yards with that belief, like actually doing the hard yards of fulfilling every single obligation or sunnah they need to do, that's a kind of I guess the belief propels that, but at the same time, it's a proof of them actually upholding that belief. You get what I mean?
Because there is this viewpoint that's becoming, and people don't know what it's called, right? But this is what they actually believe, and this deistic viewpoint on life, And so people will be like, okay, God exists, cool story.
Yeah.
So what? Big deal, right?
People are saying that's probably that's a big thing that's rising now.
Yeah, and so that's one of those cases when, of course, there's more to it, and I'm not doing it justice, but more or less is that this God exists and He created the universe, and then our life just continues, right? In terms of, like, there's this disconnect between, there's disconnect between the existence of a creator and our material life, right? In terms of impacting, and more or less is like sort of like a really bad landlord. He owns the place, he never checks up on you, kind of thing. So and the idea of deism is actually becoming quite prevalent, right? Well, some people are like, it makes sense, right? And it does make sense because I think it's philosofically sound.
They don't even ascribe to deism. They're just like, God exists.
They don't know what it's called, right? But that's the term that it's called. And I was reading articles, and I think brother what was Dad? Bassam Zawadi. You need to get him on the podcast, by the way.
Yeah, he was on Mammals. He did he's got a whole essay research paper.
He's got a whole research paper, which I highly recommend, on academia.eg or whatever it is. Check it out. But that's one of those rising trends that even with Muslims, right? I believe in God. I'm a Muslim. Yeah. But then what?
Yeah.
Right? Or that, God exists, but I don't really think He's doing anything here. Yeah, He's not really in control. I'm in control here. Anyway, it's egocentric and liberal and that sort of stuff, but secular and that sort of stuff. But there's this other shade of, like, okay, we've dealt with that. We're working on atheism, and we're dealing with that, right? And then there's also this other shade of a kind of atheism, if that makes sense. Without denying the existence of God, but it's in its practical implications. Anyway, so there's a lot of things happening, but sort of appreciate where this is coming from and the consequences of having those beliefs. So when we believe in something, what does that then mean? And I think that's really important.
It's something that we should focus on in this day and age, because as you said, it is a rising trend. So we need to understand that belief isn't just a personal belief you keep to yourself. Obviously it is, and you have to believe, God is one, and the angels exist, and 6 articles of faith and also some last final messenger, etc. But then you got to act like upon it, and I think that may get the Dawah approach that may be portrayed at times is that yes, you believe, and then there's no follow up. Sort of, okay, now I need to do that, and I think that may get lost. I think, especially in Speaker's Corner, perhaps.
Sometimes it's this as well, and the discussion is huge, right? But one of the components is like, okay, God exists, but he didn't really reveal prophets or messengers, and the scripture is not really sound, right? Or the whole idea of scripture, like why would he bother doing that kind of thing? And there's sort of some arguments you might encounter, yeah. And so there's that component of it too, that. You might have heard this about atheists, like why would God care about these little specks of dust on this planet Earth?
Yeah, I've heard atheists say that a lot. Yeah.
So even if he exists, like so what, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, there's sort of, and I'm probably straw manning the arguments, but anyway, for entertainment value. But yeah, anyway, there's a whole trove of other things that if we can appreciate and recognize, we can encounter and I mean we can interact and really engage with them really well.
Definitely, I think we've exhausted a lot with that kind of conversation. Because in the Facebook thing live, I wrote TEDx speaker Abdulah Hamimi.
Who's that guy?
So now people are thinking I'm watching Dawah. How to do Dawah? How does it correlate? So do you have anything? I might switch to a bit of a different subject here, because you've more about your experiences with like TEDx and stuff, and even your life. Was there anything else you wanted to add in terms of takeaway points when it comes to Dawah, everything we talked about,
I'm not allowed to do that.
Atheism and all that?
Yeah, no, alhamdulillah, mashallah. I think we spoke a lot about a lot of things, and I think there's a lot of like discussion points that can arise from that. And
yeah, definitely, again, we can break it down.
We're only going to really touch on things, but there's a lot of things happening, a lot of things to think about, and a lot of things to get involved in. And if you're not involved, get involved.
Definitely.
And the only KPIs are with
we got a trademark there before someone steals.
There's a bit of tackiness to it, but anyway, I'll take it.
But
I sound like a curry uncle.
What nationality are you, by the way?
My parents are from Afghanistan.
Oh, okay, mashallah.
So I can make packy jokes anyway.
Yeah. There is a bit of I didn't realize, like I just presumed, because I have Afghanistani friends and stuff, and they're like Sunni obviously, and when I pray with them, Hanafi, Yohan.
Yeah.
So, and then I realized there is like a Shia population as well in
there's a big Shia, of course.
It's really interesting.
Interacted with Iran as well, so it's like anyway.
Is it more like minority? Is it like similar like Pakistan? They have like a minority Shia population as well, in the sense of like, is it?
I don't know the actual stats in terms of what percentage it is, but I mean, before all the political stuff, like Shia and Sunni live, in the same villages. Yeah. People intermarry and that sort of stuff. It's not like that. It's not politicized like it is now, and that's changed. That's changed a lot now.
Yeah, definitely. Politics and stuff and beef happens and all that. I don't know. Would you say they're more persecuted in Afghanistan or already? Because I know, I think
they both had. Okay, I'll say this. They've both had their turns of being in power.
Yeah.
And so.
It's
let's just say that, right?
Politics and
so it gets
stuff like that.
It gets a bit messy. But
yeah, fair enough. Do you play cricket a lot?
I used to play cricket a lot.
Oh, really?
I used to play a lot of cricket.
Oh, nice.
And I miss it, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah,
I watch, and since I've stopped playing, I don't really watch it that much. But I used to be that kid who after school I would say or even school would finish and we'd be like the summer of cricket, right? And literally sit on Channel 9. I'm there from 10 o'clock until 5 o'clock watching the test match. Seriously. My parents like trying to make me study, and I'm sitting there watching cricket. But I used to really.
That's like every like Bangladeshi guy in the universe. Not just this universe. Okay, the Quranic interpretation where there's the scholars propose there's different universes with another Tanzim or Abdulah Hamimi. So even worlds, in those universes, the same issue, bro.
But then I moved away from cricket a little bit and more into
gymming and stuff.
A little bit, yeah. Also EPL, so English Premier League, and Arsenal. So I'm an Arsenal supporter.
Should be Man City to support the Etihad brothers. Saudi brothers.
Is it Qatari?
Is it? Yeah, Qatari. Emirates is Is it Qatar?
The money's coming from
it's
somewhere.
Dubai.
I mean, it's oil money anyway, so whatever.
Yeah, it is. You got to support our oil money bros.
Sure. All right, let's move on.
Alhamdulillah. So, many people might not know, because you alluded to you played before, but you didn't because you had like an incident in your life and it could have shaped the course of how you went about it. And you kind of articulated it in a TEDx talk, right?
Yeah.
So to give a background story, so you are a TEDx speaker. You went up and spoke. How did you get that gig, and why did they give you opportunity? Would you break it down for the listeners that are not familiar with that kind of your side?
I'd love to give you a really complex, like really interesting story, but to be honest, this is how it happened.
On infinite regression.
Yes, I'm really philosophical. Like, something happened. Now, to be honest, what happened is I was tapped on the shoulder and said, "Would you like to give a TEDx talk?" And
Mashallah,
I was like, "Are you serious? Really?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And then and obviously they let you figure out what you want to talk about. And I was thinking, okay, I want this to be Dawah related. Yeah, how can I do it? And then I quickly found out that TEDx is a bit of a liberal secular space.
Yeah.
So in terms of how to articulate things, if you actually Google TED, if you go on YouTube and write TEDx, actually, am I getting in trouble for saying this? But I'll say it anyway. If you
our listeners won't dob you in, don't we? Inshallah.
Public disclaimer, confidentiality agreement signed. It's too late. It's already up on the channel. What was I going to say? So yeah, if you YouTube TEDx Islam, right, or
TEDx Islam,
just TEDx Islam or TEDx Muslim, the majority of the talks you hear, you'll see is or listen to is like why the hijab is misunderstood, or Muslims and terrorism. Jihadis
it's
turning
it's more
into
a moderate line of thinking.
So it's like reformist and
there's that as well.
Or to show how Islam is like normal.
So like moderate essentially.
So I was like, it was difficult to actually find inspiration because I was looking at it, I'm like, I definitely don't want to give a talk like that.
Why?
Like there was this one talk that anyway, whatever. Right. So like seriously, one of the talks on the one about hijab, I think she got something like
it went viral. It went viral.
10 million
I know
views.
She was proposing that hijab isn't obligatory in
it was a cultural sort of thing, and the Quran actually doesn't describe it. Anyway, whatever. I don't really want to focus on that. I don't want to give it any more views than it's got, right? And so, I spoke to a few people, got some advice, and then because there was a series of drafting, right? So the TEDx thing that you saw on and maybe Tanzim can share it and get me more views.
I'll put it on the show notes, inshallah.
Sure. It wasn't just like one talk. There's actually, alhamdulillah, and I was actually quite impressed by how they conducted it all, because there was a series of sort of like dress rehearsals, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
In terms of like practicing it, refining it.
You're a really good speaker, mashallah, bro. You held it down really well, because you got to have that sort of, sorry to quickly add, it's just that, just to give it context for listeners, is that you got to be like calm and very collected and kind of storytell. It's like it's an art in that sense. When you, in a TEDx talk specifically, you got to engage the audience. So you got to, be calm and build up the story and be a good storyteller. And alhamdulillah, you definitely for sure embody that.
I told my parents and my wife, make heaps do for me. And I think seriously, that's
worked out purpose.
Because we were on it. So there was a heaps of drafting and there was a bit of rehearsing as well. And I remember the first draft that I did was it was very Islamic. I'm talking hadith and Quran verses and Islamic evidences, and then I realized that this is after the first audition, and then they told me
they cancel you.
No, they could have. No, they were like, you can't. One of the TEDx policies is that you can't be promoting ideology, even though they're happy to promote liberal secular ideology. Anyway, I can't fight that. You can't be promoting religion or anything like that. And I'm like, okay. And I saw other videos, and anyway, I want to work well with these guys because the guys were really good, but they're just following policies. And so I had to refine the speech, and then, but inadvertently, that actually made the speech more powerful.
Yeah, it
made it more receptive to more people.
100%.
So,
could you break? Sorry, do you want to add? Because I want to get you to sort of summarize what did you talk about in that talk, so people can kind of tune in as well? Because
Yeah.
you're not mentioning about what you sort of
I'll get to that. I'll get to that. So
you're kind of leaving the big important part out. But
So this is the formulation of the whole thing, yeah. And I got it refined, and I got advice by close people as well, and practiced it. And literally on the day, so we got to the stage, and literally the stage was like, there's bright lights in your face. I could not see anyone. There were
really?
the venue was full of people. I could hear them. And I couldn't say anything. I remember I said a particular joke or a little line.
you don't know anyone laughed or
I
not?
know I heard my sister laugh only because I know that's how my sister laughs. I could not say anyone. So like literally, I'm staring into a blank canvas, like a dark blank canvas. And the venue was Alexander Theatre at Monash University, and they just renovated it, and it looks amazing. Like seriously, it's like people paid good money to watch it, so you get to see it for free now.
So
I got up there, and I always before any
winged it.
I'm not allowed to tell you that. But before I do any public speaking or any of the workshops or any other sort of stuff, like that dua that Musa alayhi salam says, Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. SubhanAllah, bro, that's like embedded in my heart, because without that, it's like
I thought it was KPIs with Allah.
There was like that untangles your tongue and just gives you this calmness. And I came on stage, and it just came from the heart. It just came from the heart.
Amazing.
And, when you rehearse it, it becomes a bit robotic.
And
that just didn't happen. And so it was alhamdulillah, it worked really well.
It's proof of Islam, subhanAllah. These are the stories you tell non-Muslims when you give dawah, bro.
Islam confirmed, huh? And I got really, really good feedback from it. So basically what I spoke about was, it was titled Embracing Suffering, right? Which sounds like a little bit of does that even make sense, right? Why would you want to inflict pain on yourself, right? And so
is this nihilism or
the approach that I took on it was to focus on the problem in philosophy of religion, the problem of evil, right? And this is something that on face value, it's quite confronting, and it sort of makes sense on the face value without breaking it down, particularly from a Christian worldview, right? And of course, when we mentioned this earlier, that sometimes religion is packaged as Christianity, right? And so and then they dump it all on all the religions. So the problem of evil I feel is a problem of more for Christianity than it is for Islam, right? Because of the way that they define or understand God, as all good, just good, and in Islam we have God is understand. He's revealed this to ourselves through His 99 names in the Quran, for example, right? And so we have attributes of God being all loving, God being all wise, and if He's all good and loving and He's wise, and there's bad things that happen, if there's wisdom, there has to be a reason, right? And our task is to understand that wisdom in the scope of our purpose of life. Right. And so I used my experience that I had a motor vehicle accident when I was 19, and I had a spinal cord injury amongst many other injuries. And so at the time, without sounding too bleak, I think the doctors said to my parents, I think there's probably about 5 or 10% chance that I'm going to make it through. But anyway, I had other injuries. And so I was in an emergency. I was obviously ICU and all that sort of stuff, and they did my surgery on my back to put my spine together. But you know what? There was more like, hey, he's probably not going to make it through, but just in case, we'll just chuck some bolts, and the orthopedic surgeon did an okay job of it. And then alhamdulillah, after 2 weeks, I came out of a coma. And I came out of the coma, and there was no guarantee that I was coming out of the coma either. But anyway, I did, and my memory was a little bit hazy at the time because of the certain anesthetics and the things they give you. Sort of, I think one of the side effects is, I can't remember the name of it, but it wipes out your short-term memory. So I don't remember anything of what happened, which is actually really good because the car accident happened. The place where the car accident happened, I drive past that literally maybe like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times a day, right? So I can't remember anything. The last memory that I remember was probably like maybe half an hour before it happened. But nevertheless, anyway, the whole thing happened. And so I woke up in this body where, as a 19-year-old, I was 18 at the time. I had my 19th birthday when they took my tracheostomy out, which is the tube that essentially breathes for you, right? Because I couldn't breathe.
That's insane.
So I've still I got this epic scar down my back and across my ribs as well. It looks pretty good, but I need to cover my ulcer, so you can't see nothing. So anyway, so all that sort of stuff happened, and we have goals in our life. We have we want to do things, whatever, right? We want to be places, education, life, family, other worldly KPIs, if I can say. And then suddenly all that stuff is just put on hold. Not because you wanted to, but because you have no choice, right? Now, what do you do with that? Do you choose to accept it? Do you choose to say, oh, hey, man, pretty crappy situation. Make you feel sorry for yourself, or do you choose to move forward and without sounding like whatever, or do you choose to actually do something about it, right? And with my kind of injury, there's not much you can do about it. Upper motor neuron lesion, there's a whole host of reasons why it has the potential of recovering, but then at the same time, there's many barriers for that that may pretty much make it very unlikely. And so I noticed when I went through rehab, I got out of the hospital about 7 months later. No, 8 months later. Yeah.
Another 8 months.
Acute hospital. No, it's a long time, man. I can't believe the last 8 months anyway. And got out of hospital, and I, for the first probably 3 or 4 years, you're still trying to figure out, understanding your own body, all the other impacts it's had, medically, socially, and then all other chronic issues that come with it. Anyway, I tried to go back into uni pretty much straight away, and I came from a background of physiotherapy I was studying at the time, so I was really rehab medicine based. I was working at a medical center at the time. All my family is the sort of quintessential, medical-ish based family, so you know what it is. All my friends were sort of in that thing, and so it really assisted my rehabilitation at the time. And my family was great, my friends were great, really understanding, and I just wanted to get back into my life. As opposed to, I found a lot of other people trying to really holding on to that hope that hey, I'm gonna maybe walk, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and to be honest, a lot of those people are still doing rehab, and all power to them. But I took this as a conscious approach, actually. I just wanted to get on with my life. So I go back to work, go back to study, go back to friends, go back to family. So many years down the track, 8-9 years down the track, I got married. Alhamdulillah, I have a son as well. I've got a 7.5-month-old son as well. Shout out to Yusuf, if he's listening. He's not listening. And stuff like that. And of course, engaging with my Islamic tradition and theology was really at the core of that. Because when something really bad happens, if I can call it that, why is this happening to me? Yeah, why me? What did I do? I'm only 19, bro. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do drugs. I was raised in a really sheltered family, right? My mum used to drive me to school and drive me back home. I didn't go to any of my friends' houses at all. I would never. But alhamdulillah, that's how my parents raised us, mashallah, and all credit to them. And so it's like, why? And then suddenly you're Muslim and you're learning about your own religion and you're trying to comprehend it. And anyway, through understanding some philosophical assumptions and how our own Islamic tradition understands this topic, it really empowered me in moving forward. And I really wanted to share that with other people. And so this platform was an incredible opportunity to do that. yeah, we did it. Alhamdulillah, through literally through the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was hopefully it was receptive, and I got really, really good feedback from it, from Muslims and non-Muslims. And so it was an opportunity to subvert the TEDx policies on religion in a way to get some
get some Islamic flavor, but without explicitly
some authentic Islamic flavor without making it too explicit. And yeah, alhamdulillah, just really alhamdulillah. That's all I can really say about that.
Just for, I guess, listeners who are listening through audio, and may not because we have a lot of listeners in America and UK, etc., Canada. So you were like walking and everything normal, functioning in.
Yeah, so I was a healthy person before. Yeah, I had no problems
before 18, 17. You said.
Yeah, so 18. I had my 19th birthday. They took my tube, the breathing tube out, and my mum gave me a piece of cake. That was literally the first thing I ate for 3 weeks.
Wow,
it was pretty good cake though.
And now, you're pretty much a wheelchair.
So I use I think the terminology and the language we use is important. You could describe it as and I've heard it, and sometimes I've used that language too, but I think we need to move away from it. Is confined to a wheelchair bound. That's chill, man. I use a wheelchair to move around. But I know some people just use that sort of language, which I don't make it too big. I don't make a fuss about. But functionally, so my legs are paralyzed, but my brain isn't. So and maybe my arms as well. So my disability is actually not that bad. I mean, from my point of view, at least, it's just whatever you can do walking, you can do in a wheelchair. I guess if I can say it in that way. And I've been able to, alhamdulillah, I've we call it luck, but it's definitely not luck. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, blessed me, and I don't mean it in a flexing sort of way, but but only through, the way I should have described it is through the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We've been given a lot of opportunities, a lot of privilege, that many people aren't, with whether they have a disability or not. And anyway, as a Muslim, I have my cognitive function, and everything else. And, so let's make the most of it. And so, if I can tie it back into
very inspirational.
That was really #inspiration porn.
And I guess, you mentioned, that you're trying to compute, I guess, the wisdom of it happening and stuff. And I guess, would you say that that's sort of the rationale you've gone down, that you've, trying to now do even more than perhaps before? Or what sort of rationale do you take now from that sort of,
explicitly
situation?
No. So it's not like I have this, mantra or motto or something that I go by. But it's just sort of embedded, right? And sort of subconscious, yeah. But I've always sort of been the kind of guy that tries to do. We'll put in context, yeah. We've had our ups and downs. I've had my ups and downs, and there's days where and I don't I've still got chronic issues, right? And we sort of have to do what I can about them. But stuff is of course, they're less glamorous sort of stuff, yeah. And I don't like to talk about it that too much, but there are those challenges and those difficulties that somehow without speaking about it, you get things done, and people actually don't know that maybe this guy's dealing with X, Y, and Z. And actual real medical issues. Yeah. And but I am, but you don't try and make that overshadow your work. So there's been many times where, and for that reason, when I've got back to uni, I studied essentially part-time or casually, because of that, because of many issues, and I had to take intermission at certain times because of that. But nevertheless, I don't think that's exclusive to a disability, if that makes sense. People have health issues all the time, and we have to make the most of the life that we're given.
Okay, because alhamdulillah, why I asked that question is that this is your story is just very inspirational in the sense that from just overcoming that obstacle and challenges, and able to now you're doing a TEDx talk about that sort of situation, plus you being involved in the community and doing conducting Dawah organization, and you were part of other organizations as well. So it's in that sense, you've able to achieve so much from what may seem that may not the circumstances that you went through may not allow you to do what you've achieved. You get what I mean? So
Yeah.
I guess, you know, you can always, people will be inspired by what you've gone through and what you've done. And that's why I asked you about that question of, like, what sort of like rationale or sort of wisdom do you take from it? Because for me, it's like, perhaps, you know, it could inspire a lot of, the rationale is that it could inspire many people in the community to have that. You know what I mean?
So people people are going through a lot of things, right? Whether it's emotional, physical, medical, or spiritual. You know, and a lot of things people don't talk about. People sort
definitely
of like a stoic sort of, if that's the word, outlook on it. Like, you know, they'll just keep it into themselves, and they're trying to endure it. And
you think that's a good thing though? Like, should people do that?
I've done that a lot. To be honest, I have done it a lot. And then there was a point where
I think everyone does it.
Yeah, everyone does it. That's because this is human nature, right? Oh, I mean,
I don't know. If
to
it's
some
the
extent,
society that we live in, perhaps. I don't know. Like,
I don't try and portray, and this is like when people say, "Oh, it's all inspirational. We did so much stuff," right? I don't try and portray like this hard shell, like I'm some sort of soldier and soldiering on kind of thing. Like, it's all right. You have your bad days.
Of course.
Like
you struggle.
I
have even sin, you know, and you gotta. No, I'm not. I'm just saying in general.
Way too far.
But you know what I mean. Like, everyone struggles at one degree. You know what I mean. And
yeah.
Like, I can only kind of relate. Like, you know, you're saying amazing, so I just feel bad. Like, I feel like this environment, like where I'm in now. I see a kitchen right there. It's like, I wish I was in a more like dramatic area.
Wait, could we just describe how we got to this venue? Yeah, so I parked my car, and then so this happens all the time, because I forgot to tell Tanzim this. Anyway, maybe I thought he'd just assume it. I was like, I was gonna, is this room wheelchair accessible? So I go there. There's 2 steps, and Tanzim's like, no, we can get you up. I'll get you up. I'm like, no, you're not gonna get me up. Anyway, I got out of the car, had a look, and I was like, yeah, this is not gonna happen. And then alhamdulillah, we got, you know, and this is what's happened a lot, like particularly in Australia. Now, I've heard stories from other people in other countries, and unfortunately, where we're from, it's totally different. But in a way, disability is sort of celebrated, and people want to help. People want to accept. Anyway, I'll tell you exceptions, but we'll keep it positive for now. And that's really helped and facilitated a lot of things. Like, for example, I did Hajj in 2010 or 11, I think it was. And alhamdulillah, we had an amazing group. Like, the group was this like dream team group, mashallah, and it made things so much easier. But and all that, I mean, the Sheikh told me it's not really fard on me anyway because of my situation. But somehow we got through it, man. We got through it. And it was amazing. It was just amazing. And it was like the amount of the support and the help that I had from Mecca to Medina, like random people. You know what? We were doing tawaf, and like, I just want to do it by myself, right? But I couldn't, because there was people that just wanted to hold onto my wheelchair. In fact, there was a Shia guy that was doing tawaf with me, and I didn't realize it was. Anyway, mashallah. Right?
Yeah.
But like, and even in Medina, yeah. You know, I got to go pray in Janatul Baqi, right? Like, literally, the security guard literally lynched like 2 people out of there. 2 old people literally lifted them up, kicked them out.
Oh, really?
And I'm just there, and he's like, people get to pray 2 rakat there, and like, oh my God, this is alhamdulillah, right?
Yeah.
I got to stay there for as long as I wanted, as many times as I wanted.
Wow.
And there's some perks to it. But then so anyway, the ummah, or the Muslim community, has been incredibly helpful in that. I haven't encountered too many problems. Now, I know that's obviously, maybe it's my personality or the way I conduct myself.
Yeah, mashallah, I think you're sanguine, like very...
I'm not going to sit there and just, cop it. But the community has been good. But actually, on that point, just before I forget, because I might forget in terms of this. So there was a Dawah conversation I had a few weeks ago, and there was this girl she was from Turkey, and she came from Turkey, and she was working in Australia, and she was trying to, her issue with the existence of God. She was born as Muslim. Her issue with the existence of God was that what if bad things happen, right? And I'm like, hey, I have a TEDx talk on this. Yeah, so anyway,
ask that question to someone like yourself. So funny.
That was the point, right? So I was like, she was telling me how all this killing happens, and her life was difficult, and this and that. And that's fine, right? Like, when people go through difficulty, and the idea is not to dismiss people's
Yeah.
genuine concerns. Listen to them and try and engage with them and that sort of stuff. And then, I tried to explain my point of view and that sort of stuff and how I understood it. And then she's like, no. And then I thought, we went, I didn't see her for again. And I saw her later on. But anyway, I went back and I thought to myself, you're talking to somebody who uses a wheelchair,
Yeah.
and you're trying to tell me how, like, come on, man, like, how do you?
Come on, bro.
Can you do that with a straight face?
Yeah.
Like
That's so true. That's actually so true. Like, I would never have the guts. That just does not make sense. Like, why would you go down the line of?
Like, I'm sure there's reasons, but it's just like
like maybe she's gone through stuff in her personal.
On face value, it's sort of it made me laugh. But on the other side flip side of things, it's like. So I've had good experiences. The only bad experiences I've had is probably in parking. So obviously, like the car.
Isn't that one of the perks?
So it is a perk, but this is what happens. So because of the car that I drive, right, it doesn't really look like the kind of car that should be in that place in a disabled permit.
To give context.
No.
The car is nice. That's it.
Okay, that's it. So alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So and then you see me I'm a smiley kind of guy, right? And you see me in the car in the disabled permit, and then you see like random grumpy old white people walking past. Like seriously, it's only white people. Other people don't care. Yeah. They're like looking at me and it's like, and I've had it so many times where somebody's actually come to my window.
Oh really?
And knocked on my window and said,
hey, you mate.
Yeah, and so are you sure you should be
you Arab? Are you Arab?
I'm sure it's got something to do with that. But anyway, let's assume it doesn't, yeah. And they knock on my window and it's like, are you sure you should be here? This is a disabled permit. And I'm like, there was this one particular one where it's my local supermarket, and I live in a cushy white neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, it was so it knocks on my window, and then I'm like, are you a ticket inspector? And he's like, no, I'm not. And then the second question he asked me is, do you have a permit? And I'm like, I thought you're not a ticket inspector. Why asking the question? And then he's there with his like 5-year-old daughter or 6-year-old daughter or whatever, and he's like trying to groom him, and I'm trying to keep a straight face, and like I was so tempted just to wind up the window and just like ignore him and let him just blow off at me. But then I was like, I look Muslim, and alhamdulillah, right? We shouldn't do that, right? And so I tell him, well, here's my disabled permit. I use a wheelchair, but like you don't need to use a wheelchair to have a disabled permit, right? And if you don't see me in a wheelchair, I don't look like. If this camera didn't capture my wheelchair, I'd just look like you. Maybe a better version. No, I'm kidding.
I agree with that.
I should have said that. Astaghfirullah. But then, like, look normal, right? I'm still a human being. And so, and that's happened so many times, bro. So many times, grumpy white people and want to kick me out of my car and my parking.
And my parking. Why are they trying to take away from my parking?
I'll leave it at that.
I guess that's actually a good example. Like even as Muslims, we shouldn't be quick to judge or be quick to assume things. You know what I mean? Like it's, even from those kind of instances, like it's kind of a self-reflection for myself that we shouldn't sort of look to judge things too quickly.
I'm not kidding you. I've literally seen, I think it was a Porsche or a McLaren. I think it was a Porsche in a disabled permit, like this really sleek, low 2-seater Porsche. And I'm like, yeah, that guy definitely doesn't have a disability.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I guess the general theme is that for yourself that you're able to sort of overcome and the instances and situations, alhamdulillah, and able to still do a lot of works in the community. So I guess inshallah, even for listeners worldwide, with decent viewership here at Boys in the Cave. So
#clout.
we'll get you some views on the TEDx inshallah as well. So you'll be 1 million soon inshallah.
I'm not after views. I'm just saying like
2 million. No,
if you can share the message to anyone who you think that would appreciate it and it will help them, by all means. Send me royalties. Okay.
Alhamdulillah, like even like you, just to touch on the point you made about working with the restrictions, because you're like, it's a very secular kind of platform, so you got to toe the line a bit and all that. I think that's kind of like a blessing in disguise in the sense that you're able to. As I saw the talk, I'm like, this isn't like a Muslim. I thought it was like, I was expecting like a Muslim, like, oh yeah, hardcore dawah, whatever. I'm like, wait, this isn't, people are relating to this, like might relate or kind of empathize or sympathize with you. You know what I mean? So I'm like, wow. And then then I noticed you said something about, after the incident occurred, that's when I started to look into how my faith, interacts with the idea of, why evil exists. I'm like, wow, that's like a little, he sprinkled a bit.
I should get advice on this, and I got advice on it, and so we're using because it's that sort of space that we're using the word God, using the word heaven, hell, sort of thing. Like you want to stay away from that. So, this is what Daniel H doesn't like, huh? I think he had a post on this. Was it Yasser Qadhi using the divine or?
Oh yeah, no, it was Mufti Mank.
Oh, Mufti Mank.
He said the Almighty. I think it was Almighty.
So naturally, use language like that because that's your audience, right?
Yeah.
And so you notice that I wouldn't say like I said Islamic tradition, Islamic intellectual tradition, the divine, and that sort of stuff, right? And you just it makes it receptive to the audience. Doesn't mean you're denying anything. It's just formulating a language for the right audience, right? And that was the advice that I got, and it worked really well. And I was actually, because the talk was they edited it, and I think they edited one part of it as well. So hopefully it was a little bit longer. It was a little bit longer than actually that, because I think the policy is 18 minutes, max of 18 minutes. That's a TED talk.
Yeah.
So I was actually interested to see. I did it in September, and by the time they uploaded it, it was like in February. So
that's like us as well, boys. And we record and we upload.
Wow. When is this going up?
It's already up on Facebook, but it's going to be uploaded on like 3 months because we already have a backlog. Okay. But anyway, that's a side point. Sorry, we're all the same. Non-Muslim, Muslim organizations, we're all the same.
Yeah, so I was like, so people are saying like, oh, I want to listen to talk, and I'm like, yeah, it's going up, and then they'll send me another message, and it's like, it's going up, and then they'll send me another message, it's going up, and I'm like. I got to a point where I told the guys like, bro, it's like, just forget about it. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because it just taking so long.
Yeah.
But
so in terms of, I guess, we were talking about purpose before, and I wanted to ask you that people sometimes may think that, like, I mentioned earlier as well about the luck game and everything. And how about the idea of, you go through certain hardships, right? And you're not exactly sure, why you've gone through it, and you've kind of have to compute like surely there's from Islamic perspective it's like there's some sort of wisdom. Would you say like it doesn't necessarily have to be like a kind of set sort of rationale per se? There could be multiple different ones, or there could be even reasons that you're not sure, but it's always having that mindset that there is some benefit or purpose or path for you, for anyone going through any hardship to endure. Essentially
with something like that, I like to like people ask this question, they ask this question is like, why are bad things happening, right? Or why did this happen to me? Why did why did X happen? And it could be as horrible and as not as so horrible as you can describe, right? And I think the worst way to answer that question is to give like a direct answer. For example, and I think sometimes the coronavirus thing happened like this.
Yeah.
People made this argument. That's because I was punishing you.
Yeah.
They're punishing X, Y, and Z, or it's happening because of this particular reason. You didn't do this, or you did this, right?
Well, we're not saying it could be a possibility, but it's not like there's also
but we don't know that.
Yeah, exactly.
So anything could be a possibility, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So in terms of the divine purpose, we have no idea unless it's a revelation, right? And of course, it's not going to be a revelation anymore.
Yeah.
So
and
that cancels out that
it's not like prophets are with us now to tell us, Allah said, this is a punishment, this is not, sort of thing. So it's like, how do we discern that?
So
it's no point.
I think the general rule is that if something is bringing us closer to our Creator, actually, even then, it's too much of a delicate thing to tell anyone that this is a punishment or this is a test. I think the general way is to not give direct answers, right? As though like you have this overarching knowledge on things, right? Remember, we don't have the totality of knowledge. Yeah, we only know a little bit. We only know what our eyes and our senses can sense and understand, our mind can comprehend. Yeah, and through human experience, we definitely know this, is that, and through your own life experience, you know that certain things, if you could, 20 years ago, if you could describe where you are now, like you wouldn't be able to do that. You just wouldn't be able to do that. Yeah. And you know things through hindsight. Yeah. In retrospect. Yeah. So you can understand things after they've happened. Right. And so, knowing that there is this, our Creator is in control fundamentally. Yeah. We have free will in terms of the decisions and the choices that we can make, although it's still within the realm of our the Creator's knowledge. Yeah. But having that tawakkul, right? Having that tawakkul that there is light at the end of the tunnel, right? There's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is where there's this way of just comprehending things, that things, it's okay if you don't have the answer or you don't understand what's happening, right? But knowing and having that deeply ingrained faith, that iman, that this is not happening for no reason, for no purpose. There's fundamental purpose behind everything, and your Creator is in control, and He wants the best for you, right? You are gonna get khair, right? Whether you see it now or you realize it later. And this is the thing, it's very unempathetic, if that's a word, or not compassionate, to tell people when they're enduring hardship, right? It's difficult to tell. It's difficult to tell because they're going, there's all this emotion, all this difficulty. Like I had a lot of people coming to me, and of course making me dua and prayers and this and that. And at the time, although you might have heard that, it's difficult to really penetrate your heart and mind at the time. It's hard, but when you're through pain and suffering, somebody just tells you there's a purpose to it. You're like, man, who the hell set up this purpose? So we know the generality, and sharing the generality and reiterating and reinforcing it and being able to communicate that in a compassionate way, I think, is the most important thing. We don't have those direct answers, like we're prophets or messengers or angels and that sort of stuff, right? And that's okay. I think that's a more compassionate and understanding approach for a Muslim, for somebody who already believes in God. If somebody doesn't believe in God, well, then there's a different conversation to have, right? But if we're having this conversation with our brothers and sisters, I think it just needs to be done with empathy, with compassion, and wisdom.
I think a big takeaway point, which is very profound. That was amazing insights as well. One specific takeaway point is that it's about 20, 30 years later, you look back and then you think, okay, because I went through that hardship, this XYZ happened. And then, so it's not necessarily about fixating on, okay, at that time you have this sort of purpose planned out, and everything's going to go in this fashion because you've derived some sort of rationale, but it could completely be different because the only way we can tell is actually like in the future when we look back.
There's also, sorry if I can say, also there's this idea of like, there's this Christian idea, yeah. I'm not trying to draw a parallel, but they have this thing called the prosperity gospel, right? And this is where all the preachers, they make their money, right? They basically say, give money to this cause and God will give you all this happiness and all this good stuff in this world and the after and that sort of stuff, right? Like sometimes we can view certain things, like for example, like, I did Hajj, I gave all this charity, I set up a mosque, I give all this, and then why the hell does this happen to me, right? As though like there's this give and take. Right, I give God a little bit
transactional.
Yeah, transactional, like
business,
a business transaction, right? Someone's like, "Hey, God, like I gave you a little bit, now it's your turn to give me back some," right? It's like, no, it's all God's. Everything is given you. The fact that He's even testing you, the fact that you even have life, is a huge blessing. And sometimes, when difficult struggles and difficulties happen, it's really difficult to appreciate the blessings that you do have. Yeah, and like in my situation, I can. I'm incredibly grateful. I mean, alhamdulillah, my health is really good now. But incredibly grateful for what I do have. And sometimes we discount that fact that we have so much that we just take for granted. And not only just our bodily functions and that sort of stuff, but our context, our privilege. Like it's huge privilege, bro. Huge. If I was in Afghanistan, in this situation, I probably definitely wouldn't have made it out of the hospital, right? Now, there's all the discussion around that and that sort of stuff. I'm not saying that hashtag Team Australia or anything like that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
It's due. You gotta give credit with due in that your specific situation as well.
yeah. So God blessed you with. Or the divine, or the Almighty, if we can say. Daniel, is he listening?
I hope so. I hope so. No, maybe you can make a post on it and advertise.
No, I want to be friends. In a second.
Yeah. We had him on before and stuff, but yeah. Anyways, yeah.
Anyway, I digress. Or the Muslim realist, if you're listening. So it's okay. It's okay, right? And so the best way to engage with this in a compassionate way, with those kind of answers and that sort of stuff. So whether it's because you have a flu or whether it's because somebody chopped your leg off or something like that.
Well,
yeah.
I think because why I asked you that question is like I'm not gonna I can't obviously truly understand what trials you've gone through. However, speaking from my, I guess, perspective or what I've gone through personally, I won't mention like specific hardships, but the one thing that it's not really a hardship, but the general idea of purpose and what's the path for you in the future and where Allah is taking it, all that sort of in the dunya sense. For me personally, like I always think about it simply because a lot of people know about this, like my parents so I had an older sister and I wasn't born at the time though, and she passed away. She drowned in river in the village of Bangladesh, and so because of that, however, obviously it was a tough time with the parents. I wasn't alive then, but I think how many years later, 5 years later, I think I was born around that time. And in saying that, now, growing up, and I obviously don't know what my parents went through, and it's obviously very heartbreaking. Like, parents don't want to see their child. I've noticed this one thing, where I joke. My mom would tell me something about. She talks about how, she said, like, she talks about like, oh, when I die or something. And Islamically, we all don't know when we're gonna die. This and that. So I thought, how do you know I'm not gonna die before you? This and that. But she doesn't get triggered, but she's just like, don't say that, this and that. But I realize, I guess the reaction happens firstly because she's gone through that. Yeah. Secondly is that, I don't know, parents just don't want to see the children die before them, in general. Like they want to see them, raise their kids up, be successful, married off, and then they die first, and you know what I mean? But I guess, but then however, the other point I'm trying to make is that for me personally, it's just thinking about that sort of situation and scenario. Always, like, I think about it every day, because I asked my mom this, and I've asked this mom on a lot of occasions, like, I know everything happens, Allah's plan and everything, we can never plan things, but then I'm just like, would I have been born if my older sister didn't pass away?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She always says probably not, like no, like she doesn't say probably no, she's definite no, because in their time, in that mindset was like they only just want an only child. You get what I mean? And I'm not saying that my sister had to die for me to come in. But the thing is, like alhamdulillah, like if you die, Islamic tradition, if you die when you're a child and you drown in a river, you're actually a martyr if you drown in a river, and as a child you're a martyr if you die as well. So it's like a double kind of inshallah she's granted Jannah and all Jannah Firdaus and all that. But in saying that, it's like for me it's like such a it even though I wasn't there, it just impacts me so much to think like there has to be a plan. Like how can that? And then not only that, I remember when I was when I was 12 years old, I used to always nag my parents, oh, mom, dad, I'm always alone, this and that. And my sister was alhamdulillah, so I have a younger sister, right?
Yeah.
So all these like crazy things, you just look back. So from my parents' angle, it's like when they go through that situation and with my older sister, and then looking back now, like you can never really plan. And then you kind of see like things happen for a reason. You've just got to accept that. Like even for me, I'm just like, I know that I have to achieve something. Even I gave you that kind of, I know this is not a show about me, but I just know it's relatable in that sense. Like I can only relate to you.
TEDx speaker, Tanzim.
TEDx speaker. But like, I can only sort of relate to you even a fraction just purely through what I've gone through. You can share experience in that sense, right? So for me, it's like, there has to be something that I have to do, because it's like things when too much in a coincidental manner for me to be here. So it's like, I don't know what it is. So that's why I talk about my sort of experience getting to Deen, because I always take that as like, even my path into Deen was just like, subhanAllah, like I wouldn't have fathomed I would be here. Well, so it's just like, I'm always, you know, contemplating, like I haven't really fixated on, I've set to achieve this in my life because, you know, I know Allah has this plan and I've got to make the most of it. He's given me this opportunity to be alive and do this XYZ. But at the same time, it's like I don't have a fixed plan per se. But at the same time, I can only just I don't know. But you know what I mean? So it's a thing in the sense of what you're relating to, like purpose. It's when Allah has a plan for you. It's not like when you go through hardships, you can kind of in that moment figure out exactly like, okay, from this hardship, I know now my trajectory in life. You just got to, I don't know, keep your intentions pure, do it for the sake of Allah. Know your obviously responsibilities in the dunya sense and fulfill those. But always kind of, I guess from Muslims' perspective, living in the West, for me, it's like my vague sort of purpose is like, I have to help the ummah some way, somehow. You get what I mean? Like, that's the only thing I can kind of take vague, latch onto for the time being, I guess. But I don't know, bro. It's just like something, I guess.
Yeah.
And this is just my story. The people would have even more crazy. So I know people have life and death situations. People almost died, etc., etc. So everyone kind of takes those moments and tries to be like, okay, what do I do now? There's a purpose, there's a plan. And where do I go with it? So what would you say with your kind of situation? Like, where do you take it now? Like, for someone that's actually perhaps gone through certain circumstances, perhaps, like, where do they go from there? I guess.
I think.
How do they find their plan as well? Because people have different like skill sets and all that. You know what I mean?
I think fundamentally, when you go through certain experiences and you've come out of it the other way, you don't have to necessarily come up with like this meticulous plan of you know, okay, now that I've got this, you know, what do I do with it now? I think fundamentally sharing that experience and connecting with other people through that experience, that in and of itself does a lot. That opens up so many doors, right?
Out to the TEDx talk. That you literally did that. I can't exaggerate. So people have to check it out, inshallah.
So like, and this is the thing, right? And you know what? Actually, this ties so well into the emotional component of Dawah, right?
Yeah. It's all a loop in this episode, alhamdulillah.
It's like Inception. So it is. It's like, for example, when we and this is a part of our Dawah, right? It's our conversations and discussions we have with people, right? People are human beings, are emotional creatures, right? Beings, yeah. And the experiences they go through can shape the way they look at things and understand things. And maybe this is one of those things where they actually think, well, maybe there was a plan. Look, there's a plan. Who's a planner? You know, and then whatever. There's a regressive argument that goes backwards. But anyway, point is that sharing and connecting with people through that experience, and I think that's a platform we could give our community a little bit more of, because, of course, coming from like our Muslim community in the West, are all a majority migrant community, right? And first, second, third, fourth generation, depending which ethnicity you come from, right? And these experiences have got like a lot of value and utility in terms of, you know, for the generations that are coming up and the generations before them. And so, like, really fundamental, that's all it is. Sharing your experience, understanding how that experience shaped who you are. And that opens up so many conversations. Wow. It opens up so many connections that you can have with people. So it's like you know, we just had this conversation just then. You shared your experience, I shared my experience. Yeah. And like, my
one's not even a struggle. Yeah, so I'm just like figuring out my purpose. You know what I mean?
No, point taken. But you know, that's the point, right? Like, that has a lot of value in it, a lot of value. And I think sometimes you expect like it to be like linear, X equals Y or something, A plus B or something like that, right? But that's not how the world works. Yeah. That's not how life works, right? And the way you can impact people and contribute to people's thinking, you can do it in a multitude of ways, right? And of course, if we're Muslims, our fundamental purpose is to worship our Creator and, of course, share that message. And why not use that as a platform to do that, right? Yeah. And alhamdulillah, now we have, like, you know, things with social media and whatnot. You could literally get to thousands, millions of people, you know, like that, and you know, creating a presence through those, and there's so much that can be done.
That's actually insane. Like now, this reminds me that I've seen like you know how we were talking about Dawah approach before. It's like, you know, XYZ argument and rebuttals or whatever. But I've seen so much impact. I've seen like Muslim YouTubers that aren't like Islamic. Obviously, you can tell they're practicing and all that. They're not Dawah philosophy. Let's smash them and, you know, Dawah and stuff. They literally just talk about their life. And in their life, they talk about the struggles. And in those struggles, they talk about moments where, you know, crazy things happen, where Allah opened insane doors. They made like dua all night and all this like stuff. And then it just impacts you. It doesn't matter
you read the
are.
comments, and then sometimes in the comments you'll see people like, you know what, and I read this one comment, and it's like, I watched this and this is the video that shaped my X, Y, and Z. And I was like, wow. That comment was like,
it's probably like a non-Muslim as well or something.
You never know. So but yeah, that's the thing, right? Sharing that experience, like that emotional, spiritual sort of connection and a struggle, like we need more of that. I mean, like, not as in like we need more struggle, but we have plenty of that, but we need to share more of that. And like, you know, like for example, I was reading, John Fontaine. Have you heard of him?
Yeah.
So he's actually
Dawah figure.
He's going to
UK, I think.
He's going to New Zealand.
What was that? Is that piano?
I don't know. Was that me? I don't know.
No, I don't know.
He's going to New Zealand soon anyway, and I just read his bio, and because anyway, long story. Why am I digressing? But basically, he went to Sierra Leone, right? He was doing something with diamonds or something like that at the time, not blood diamond. But he was, I think he was broke or something. He needed a place to sleep, and some Muslim gave him a place to sleep. And he heard that for the first time, like literally, right? And it was just like an emotional sort of spiritual awakening, and then things have moved on from there. And I was like, you know what, like there's all these emotional, spiritual ways of connecting to people's hearts and minds. And so take the Prophet _sallam, for example, right? There was people who came to Islam not even because the Prophet _sallam would necessarily explicitly convey the message that there's only one God and I'm the messenger, I think, right? They would come through their families, through their other relationships, other interactions, and you know, a whole host of like sort of emotional and worldly sort of interactions. There are things that we can do. A lot of things we can do in our dawah, and I think sometimes like the intellectual approach has a place and a time, but you know, I don't think it necessarily always meshes with like the average person who's 15, 20 something years old, the young person thinking about life and where his place in the universe is.
Well, I think that reminds me, I don't know if the saying is correct. It's like Allah has like unlimited amount of like rahmah, mercy. That means that he has unlimited paths to him. You get what I mean?
It's probably some sort of like proverb or something.
Yeah,
like that.
it's probably So one of those Chinese Confucius
Yikes! All right, that's like cool.
But you get what I mean? Like we shouldn't like downplay, even though like, because if we say that the whole using the rational route is like the only way to kind of convey dawah, that's like limiting.
I want to clarify that it's really important. It's really important. But the way you engage with people is not just through their mind.
Yeah.
Right. That's an important one, but not just through their mind. The other thing on the problem of evil. Now, this is another approach to take on the problem of evil, is that the problem of evil doesn't actually
just got to suffer. Like, is that?
Yeah, just gotta endure it, man.
Just gotta endure it. That's it. Suck it up, buddy.
Yeah. So it's like
stop complaining. Yeah.
So the problem of evil, it needs to be reformulated in this way, and it makes sense in this way. It doesn't necessarily negate the existence of God, right? It says the way that Muslims would understand it is that God exists, bad things happen, but first God exists. So the way we understand it is, if God exists, why do bad things happen? Yeah, not that bad things happen, therefore God can't exist. Right? That's how Christians take it.
Yeah.
And so there's a really big Christian philosophers that really. Who's that guy? I was reading his book the other day. I forget. His name.
Does it discuss problem of evil stuff?
His name escapes me, and the reason why I bring him up is because in an interview he was asked, what was the
present time William Lane Craig?
No.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry about that.
Oh, sorry.
Apology accepted. forget it. So he was saying, what was the most challenging argument for you? What was the most challenging thing for your faith? And he said it was really difficult. The problem of evil was very difficult for me, but I managed to overcome it, right? And it was like this overcoming thing. And I'm like, bro, be a Muslim, man. So easy. Like, if you're an Ash'ari, you have no problem with evil. There's no objective good and evil anyway. So you got a problem, right?
Ash'ari, Aqidah, Sufism.
chill. Okay. But anyway, but see, how other traditions have had to understand it, right? And they've had difficulties. But as Muslims, like, anyway, the point is that for Muslims, this should not shake the foundation of the existence of God. It just questions how God operates, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's about how the world manifests itself and that sort of stuff. And we know that everything's in the realm of God's power and wisdom and ability. Yeah. And so, if our task here is to comprehend things, not to dismiss things. Yeah. And so, when we ask why, we make a genuine, we try and genuinely search for that why, not just be like, I can't figure it out.
Yeah. That's a really good point you actually bring up, because when I took philosophy electives, and I took a very specific one about philosophy, like God, problem of evil, etc., etc. It was really good. It was an opener for me. Alhamdulillah, like obviously I had my, I've studied my Aqidah and all that basic stuff, so I was fine and I could navigate all those problems. But you can, alhamdulillah, like when you have that kind of grounding and you go into that, you can kind of piece together where their argument is wrong and where they've gone wrong and what they're doing a mistake. And that was a reoccurring thing with atheists when they try to not only believe in God. When we had that week of God and the problem of evil, they'd always say that, saying like, "Oh yeah, there's so much evil and this and that."
Like,
it's like, yeah.
How could I,
God is meant to be all good, okay? And you know what I mean? And so that's obviously that's yeah, exactly. So like you start piecing it together, alhamdulillah. So we should have that firm faith in the sense of firstly, like revelation coming down. We know like axiomatically God exists. We know that through divine revelation and stuff, we get more information about, for example, knowing Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is the last and prime messenger. All this sort of stuff. We should have that faith, because when I used that and I was able to kind of sift through what their arguments, it doesn't stand on any legs, but they think it does. That's the whole issue. And I don't think they've been exposed.
So the problem, and this is really good that you brought this up. Excuse me, because it has huge emotional appeal. Huge.
So they use it. They get sad and stuff.
Yeah, so they get really. The funny thing is, like, they're all intellectual until this one, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Because then, if you actually take that emotion out of it, right? And you just put it up as an intellectual argument and premises and like a syllogism and that sort of stuff, right? You can deal with it. But if you take the emotion out of it, right? But when you inject the emotion, well, firstly, fundamentally, we believe that life is a test. So there's two things, yeah? So if life is a test, life is not the outcome, in the sense that we're not in Jannah. So to make this, for example, to be like, why isn't the world like Jannah? Well, we're not in there, right? So that's basically what they started saying. It's like, why isn't the world so perfect? Like, that's not the purpose of the world. I'm sorry. Like, so sometimes, they're
assuming it.
There's
like,
it's
a given.
There's this really egocentric view. Like, the way I see the world, the way I experience the world, that's the only way to experience the world. Yeah. That's the only way to know the world. Yeah. And I should dictate how the world should be like. And I'm like, chill, man.
It's sort of like in a different lens. Like, I didn't touch on it earlier, like how we talked about a lot earlier about how the way that we approach, like for Christians' perspective, they assume like, they have a falling out with their own faith, they kind of go into Buddhism and stuff. But I think it also plays into a broader perspective of like Orientalism, in the sense that how they portray the Eastern countries is in a certain light as well when it comes to these probably. in these sort of discussions.
But atheists like to use that too. So I think, what's his name? Stephen Fry. And another guy, what's the other guy's name? Anyway, he's one of them who uses it quite important. It's like, why does God create babies with cancer?
You can tell they say
stuff like
so
that
angrily, and
I'm just like, wait a second, are you an intellectual, or are you like an emotional marketer, like trying to make like this really impact? Like, but this is how they do it. they veil themselves as like intellectual arguments, right? But really, it's fundamentally emotional.
Yeah.
And emotional in a way that they're not willing to hear or understand anything through any other way, which is really dogmatic. Who's the guy that did it? But yeah, Stephen Fry is definitely one of them. Anyway, he lives a very interesting lifestyle.
Wouldn't you say, like, my perspective as well, to take an attempt to take it a bit deeper, is that it's a bit almost this might sound really bad, it's very stereotypical, but those kind of characters that portray that kind of line of thinking are almost psychopathic because they talk about how there's so many issues in the problem, and they make it seem like, okay, they care so much, which is fine. Like, we should care about the struggles, but do they actually do anything about it? What are they actually doing about it? So, if they're not, then what are you talking about? So you're only using it just to argue a point. So get this. Like, isn't that a toxic mentality?
That's a beautiful point. And let's take it one more step, bro. Take this. Say Stephen Fry is another guy, but anyway, he was a big supporter of the Iraq war, right? Problem of evil. Okay, let's drop more bombs on people. Like, bro, on one hand, you're complaining about people, people having really bad conditions and why bad things happening, and on the other hand, you're supporting, you're supporting the bad things of happening. What? Yeah, so it's like, bro, like, how much cake do you want to eat? And he's a big guy, so he's eating a lot of cake. I know that.
So if we kind of extract that, it's only, you can see that they're only using it almost like as armor or as a sort of a weapon just to portray a point that religion is false. Like, they're only taking that.
I mean it in the context of these ideologues. Now, I'm not saying that, now this is really important, I'm not saying that people who are genuinely going through difficulty and hardship and they're questioning why they're doing that, I'm not trying to straw man them or mischaracterize them, right? People are literally soul searching, and that's fine. If somebody's genuinely soul searching, they will find the answer. They will literally, sincerely and genuinely, they pray to whoever they pray to, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer their prayers, right? And guide them in the way that He does. I'm talking about these ideologues, yeah? And these ideologues are the ones who try and use these emotional arguments to sway and try and appear like they try and intellectualize them, yeah? And they have like crowds of like thousands of people, and everyone's like clapping their hands, and it's like basically like your life is worthless. Like, what are you clapping at, bro? Why are you here to begin with? Your life is okay. Anyways.
Too many atheist refutations on this podcast. Okay. But I guess it's just, at the end of the day, would you say, like, as a Muslim, it's important to kind of go back to the fundamentals to kind of make sure you don't fall into that. You can, because if you fall back to the fundamentals of like our theology and not just assume what it is, I feel like a lot of like more lay Muslims, they sort of assume what Islam would say simply because they hear like the wider society is more Christianized, so they're just like, yeah, we probably like they subconsciously group Christianity and Islam in the same package, but they'll be like, okay, but we don't believe in the Trinity and Jesus, so we know He's not God, this and that, but all that other stuff about problem of evil and stuff, we're all in the same boat, essentially.
So this is where they lump all the Judeo-Christian stuff, and they think all the Judeo-Christian, and it's a really funny term because Christians and Jews are totally opposite to each other. Like, you killed the Messiah. Like, and you rejected him. It's like, how are you together? Anyway, right. So I don't know how. There's a really weird. I mean, it's an Abrahamic fusion. It goes back to Abraham, right? They both believe in Abraham, but they have nothing else in common, right? So then they just lump Islam into that as well. But this is where it's a really important point: is that our understanding of God, our understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and our conception of Tawheed is so distinct.
Yeah,
is so distinct.
100%.
So it's so distinct that it literally eliminates all those other issues, right? In terms of the conception of God and how we understand God. The reason being is because we know more about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than actually they do, right? And of course, they've mischaracterized it through their texts and that sort of stuff. But the reason why we know that is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed certain things to us that we could not have known otherwise. We could not have known that rationally. There's knowledge that we know rationally, and there's knowledge, and this is in Aqidah, yeah? So and so we understand all His attributes through the lens of His oneness. Yeah? Not that each attribute is an individual attribute. And this is what the Mu'tazila would do, right?
Yeah.
They would take an individual attribute and then create an argument through that one attribute, right? For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being in charge of everything, yeah, the controller, or and then being like, okay, there's no free will, for example.
Yeah.
There's certain schools that did that, but we understand all those attributes together collectively through the lens of his oneness. It's a big difference here, that God isn't just all good and all knowing. He is all knowing, and he's all wise, and he's sovereign and independent, and he's uncreated, and we can't comprehend the essence of it, but we can understand bits of it, right? We can understand how it functions through what's been revealed to us. And so this conception of God is incredibly unique. And so if we can understand Tawheed really, really well, it sets us apart.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not trying to, I know sometimes when we have these discussions about spirituality, we link it up to a particular group, and if I say the word Tawheed, we link it to a particular group.
Yeah.
Right? But there's no one has a monopoly on these ideas or on these Islamic concepts. And if we could really understand them well, it shatters all the other
100%.
white noise.
Yeah, like that even reminds me, like that's a really good point you bring up, that I forgot who the speaker was, but he made it clear, like he's obviously a Muslim famous speaker, I think he's a sheikh or something. He was saying that we, as Muslims, if you actually study the other religions out there, we are the only true monotheists. And what he meant by that is that, okay, Christians, yes, they believe in God and exists and all-powerful, almighty, but they have a trinity. So that's not true monotheism. Jewish anthropomorphize God to a certain degree as well. So that's not true monotheism, right? And then every other kind of religion, like, be it Hinduism and et cetera, they'll have like one higher God, like Allah in our sense, and it may be portrayed that as that, but they'll have shirk and idols, and you have to get through to them to get to God and all that sort of stuff. So they'll never, like, we are actually the only religion, and we should be firm on that we are the only ones that actually embody true monotheism on a purest form, and we should have that confidence in order to portray that to the wider community. So that's why we need to get more in touch with our own sort of theology and what we bring to the table, rather than just assuming what all religions sort of
the take home message is our Islam is unique, is distinctly unique, and that's why it's so special as well. You can't and when sometimes you hear this in street art all the time, right? All the religions are the same, and they all teach the same thing, and blah blah blah, and they all find their path to the one God, and everyone believes the same God, and then of course what you have to do with that is then demonstrate how Islam is unique. It doesn't exist anywhere else, and you can't get to Islam through something else. So it's not like you're gonna be like, okay, it's all right, you can get through Islam through, I don't know, whatever. So you demonstrate its uniqueness, and where it's incredibly unique is in its conception and understanding of God. That it sets apart. Nobody has that. That Unitarian monotheism, that like strict Unitarian monotheism, in a way that, like, there's Unitarianism even in some groups, very minority groups of Christianity, but that's not like how they have is Unitarianism dipped in a bit of shirk, which is still shirk. So if I could characterize
dipping
it,
sauce, and
if I could characterize it that way,
shirk as a dipping
making me
sauce.
hungry, though. But anyway.
And one thing, and I always remember this, Ahmed Didat said in this lecture that one of the amazing miracles about Islam as well, is, amongst the many miracles, is, but this particular one is amazing, is that of Allah's 99 names, essentially. And not only that, he said that he made it clear that it was just amazing how he said, he's like, get all your scientists, get all your linguists and everyone, bring them together. Would they even able to produce anything like the 99 names of Allah? Like, I was like blown away. Subhanallah. It's so true. Because if you actually read into it, if you read the examples of, Allah, 99 names, patience, all wise, etc., and you actually extract and you see what the scholars wrote about it and expanded at length about the 99 names. SubhanAllah, it's just the 99 names is something so beautiful that when you're going through a hard time, if you just go through 99 names, it just opens up.
On this idea of conception of God, this is a meme that came to mind I'd like to share with you.
Okay, so it says when Christians try to explain the Trinity to me, well, that just sounds like polytheism with extra steps.
And it has Rick and Morty. You need to- Rick and Morty. That's important.
So you do this training tactics that
Yeah, this is.
you've done it a few times on the podcast. So I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's a concerted.
I'm getting exposed. Please don't tell Hamza this.
Maybe they're trialing this as a new Dawah tactic for the future. They're looking 50 years ahead.
A meme
Where will
depository.
society-
Depository of memes.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
Was it halal memes for Dawah teens or something like that?
But I guess
Take
just
that out of the podcast.
no, I'm gonna keep it in there, inshallah. But keep it relevant for the youth. That's what we're about.
Yikes, millennials. Okay, boomer.
Do you see the memes? Do you see the boomer memes? This is the funniest thing. I related to the Sufism one. I think it was the Sufism one. It was like signs up for a Seekers Hub course, never finishes it.
Oh, yeah. All right, bro. So that's good. Okay.
Like, oh no.
Signs up to 1, signs up to 5.
Sign up to 3, and then you just say you justify, oh, life gets busy, you can't do it. Oh, subhanAllah. But
At least you'll be rewarded for intention. It's true.
oh my goodness. KPIs with Allah. KPIs with Allah.
Alhamdulillah. That's where it's at, bro.
But yeah, so what were we talking about? We're talking about purpose. Yeah, so no. Oh yeah, strict monotheism.
Yeah.
So I guess it's about making sure we're in our touch with our tradition, because we can sift through it. Because as I said, I was just so amazed, bro. Like I was in my philosophy class and I just saw this girl that was woman. Sorry, girl might seem like I'm demeaning her. I'm a lady, and she was just so like adamant. Like she was smart, intellectual, but then she just got so fired up this one week about God and evil. And it's like, there's evil and this and that. And I actually like fully engaged with her. It's like, trying to portray the Ash'ari thought. Shout out to the Ash'aris. So
Yikes.
you know what I mean? Like, so it just relates back to, as you said, it's not like there's a conflict between problem of evil and God's existence. It's about, see, that's why we have to reorient our way of thinking. It's all about trying to question God's existence. We know, like axiomatically, if God exists, it's about knowing that our limited faculty of our brain, we're only limited to understanding the world in a certain way. You know what I mean? Not in a certain way. We're only limited to understanding the whole universe. We're a limited understanding. Yeah. So it's not like we're going to understand Allah's wisdom. So if you're trying to explain away things, in a sense that you're trying to act like you're going to discover all the secrets of the world and everything, you've suddenly assumed that you're on Allah's level and able to discern it. So theologically, it's about having that grounding that we should know our place and know Allah, and essentially knowing our limitations as a human being. You get what I mean?
But see, so what I think what liberalism does is like that it shifts it
question everything.
Yeah. So putting like the individual at the center, yeah, and we know that like this is back to Aqidah, yeah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all knowing, yeah, He's all knowing, and that attribute is distinct, yeah. The human mind is limited, as much as you'd like to think, and people who peddle scientism will think, we'll understand everything one day,
Yeah,
which is keep thinking that, right? So just appreciating that reality, you sort of take, like Islam has a particular viewpoint on the mind, right? And the ability of the mind. And we know this even with our Kalam tradition, right? In terms of the different approaches that have been taken through our tradition in terms of trying to comprehend Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's essence, yeah? And like the what, yeah? The what and the how.
Atheism. So should I beef with you? I'm joking.
I'm not. I don't subscribe to any specific school. There's views that I agree with, and
so Mu'tazila. So you just kind of dabble, dip and dab.
No. So you know what? A lot of the majority of the ummah is neither, right? They just know the pillars of Islam,
Yeah,
the pillars of
that's
Iman.
exact-
Some people don't even know that, right? So,
small.
so in terms of the intricates of like each school of thought, I think it's really important to know, to sort of know them in the sense that it does set philosophical implications in terms of how we make arguments. Yeah. So for example, like if we want to talk about things like intelligent design, for example, right? Or we're going to talk about morality. Right? The different schools of thought has got different viewpoints on this, right? And so for the sake of an atheist or a non-Muslim, they don't know that, right? So we can use those arguments right now. But then if you want to have these arguments, if you want to unpack these discussions with Muslims, well then, our tradition is quite deep, right? It's not just this, other philosophy. Well, wait a second. We've a lot of our philosophical tradition is engaged with these discussions quite a long time back,
ages
right?
ago,
So it's just in order to know that. But I think the majority of people don't. Even the people who just ascribe themselves to a particular school of thought, like unless most people haven't studied that far anyway, or to know the implications of either anyway. So I don't like to. I like to present. Okay, this is what the Asharis say. This is what the Maturidis say, and that sort of stuff, right? But
I noticed iERA take that standpoint because I read Hamza Sosa's Divine Reality, and he makes actually like he states like the positions from memory. I think in one of
I think it's just good.
So it's about
and you know what?
not takfiring the other.
No, of course not.
I'm just
right, but the Atharis are wrong. No, I'm just kidding. But the point is that you'd lose people in those conversations, right? And there's no point in beefing with people over that. Like, come on, man. Like there's a spectrum, even for the Ash'ari school, right? There's a spectrum of different opinions and that sort of stuff as well. And it's just, I think our community has moved. I think it was like 90s Dawah, where like Salafi pubs sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Shout test pubs. Please sponsor us. You want a sponsorship?
Bro, I actually bumped into some of them in New Zealand. But anyway, different story. I shouldn't talk about them.
No, funny story. I just want to add, like, Sheikh Abu Adnan from Sydney.
Yeah, mashallah.
I saw like some New Zealand Dawah team or Salafi. I don't know what they're called, but then they did a refutation on it. And then I don't know what they did, but they've got red eyes on it and did that whole spiel.
Yeah, they've got websites and I don't know. I'm
crazy.
still like, I think when you've got a refutation by them, you've made it. I think
I think you made it. I think that's I think that's like an indicator that you're doing well. I think that's like
I'm waiting. Like TEDx speaker, don't worry about that, bro. Hashtag Salafi refutation.
Yeah, if you made, you're on the haq. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, Hamza's got that. He's I think he's a mutakallim or something like that, or like he's a philosopher, and all the philosophers are like basically thinking. The art of thinking is haram.
Shout out, some of them maybe maybe sincere. So
I'm sure they all are sincere.
Yeah,
I'm not saying.
inshallah.
I think we assume sincerity in everyone, and that's safe. But
They change their ways.
Can we not talk about that?
Yeah. Alhamdulillah. We've actually. This is a pretty, I think you're just being nice that you probably want to head off now. It's very late. And
I'm actually hungry and I want to go for dinner.
Yeah. Okay, you're keen for it?
Let's go. Yeah, let's go together, bro.
Yeah. Okay, you're cool to stay out later, yeah?
Yeah, it's fine, bro.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking maybe it's too late. You have to head off. And
no, that's right. I'll tell my wife I'm having dinner. She's
okay, all good, inshallah. Yeah. But before, I guess we'll ask you last question.
If you're listening, I'm actually having dinner. Sorry.
So, alhamdulillah, I think this episode was very it was natural in the sense that we spoke about important theological points that people will understand better, and we related to real life scenarios. And I think that's really important. Sometimes we talk too abstract and talk theology, this and that, but we don't link it enough to properly real life events or situations or even hardships and all that. So alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair for coming on the podcast. I don't think we've talked alhamdulillah, we have great chemistry, but I don't think I've talked to you properly, except for at the MAA.
Yeah, we only I think this is probably the first time we actually proper discussion. Yeah. We only had a real quick chat at that
Australian Muslim Achievements Award hashtag. me and Abdullah both there. I'm just saying it to inform the context for the audience. I'm not saying it to flex. I would never do that.
Okay, bro. Okay.
But we connected there. But I already knew you well, online, and you're doing works there. I knew you're doing stuff for iERA. I already knew Samarkand. You like admin there. That's how I actually know you. Because I knew you were sharing articles all the time.
You know what? Somebody actually, I'm not kidding. I was at the Dawah table when we did the Australian Open thing, and I'm like, a guy walked past and he said, "You're Abdullah from Samarkand."
Is he Muslim?
Wallahi, he was, and I asked him, "What's your name?" And he gave me his name, and anyway, I was like, "Oh, is that you?"
Yeah, that's how people know you. Actually, I reckon.
I was like,
because did you start it? Did you find
no? So a bunch of brothers. So I was there with the founding group, but I wasn't. I mean, there was a bunch of brothers. So I've always been admin, if I could say that.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of brothers who started it, and we were just there, and and just flourished from there.
Alhamdulillah. Like, why I bring that, like, just for context for the overseas listeners, Initiative Samarkand is like a Facebook page. It's more geared towards, I guess, Australian Muslims, per se, with the discussion of forum. So there were a lot of, alhamdulillah, I think, I talked to this with Yasir, I think Taba, Uthman, at one point, Faraz as well, that group, alhamdulillah, like, there are others out there, but that group specifically really raised the conversation. There was a phase of like HT versus, I don't know, modernist pomos, or what they call, you know what I mean? Like, there was all these kind of discussions that were happening. And I think that kind of forum was great to see those ideas. And it's probably, for me, it was probably the first way I got into exposed to anything dini online, which is probably not the best thing, because you're suddenly talking about like CRT, critical race theory. I'm like, what is going well, is that part of the Shahada? Like, what's going on? But alhamdulillah, like, I guess that forum is, in general, it keeps you up to date with like news around the community. I think in that sense, it's really good to see like yourself and your team, being admin, still continuing that. So jazakallah khair for that as well, inshallah. Yeah, we can sponsor Boys in the Cave as well if you make money out of it. I don't know.
Nah, admin actually,
there's a salary attached to it?
No, there isn't.
Oh, okay,
I do more the posting.
Wow, bro, mashallah. Subhanallah. All the good deeds, bro. Just piling up.
Less adminning. I think Faraz and Samar are the brains behind the adminning. But I do the posting. But we have a really good thread on that, by the way. The Samarkand thread. It's on the WhatsApp thread with admins. It's very...
Yeah, add me to inshallah.
Yikes.
Before we wrap up, I do want to ask you one quick question. We asked this question to all our guests. If there were 3 people in history or present times, if they're living now, if you could hang with 3 people in a cave, because boys in the cave, but they can't be Rasulullah or they can't be Sahaba, because everyone's just going to pick them. There's no diversity of. We want to show to our non-Muslim audience that Muslims have diversity of some sort. So if we just hear every guest saying Rasulullah, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Umar radiallahu anhu, then it's not gonna show that diversity. So it's better to 3 people present, alive or dead. If you could have an opportunity to hang with them, they don't have to be Muslim per se. They can be non-Muslims as well. But I personally couldn't answer. I don't know any non-Muslims, so I don't know any. So I would only name anyone that inspires you. You want to have a conversation.
Well, if we're in the cave, they'll soon.
But it's a mad cave. It's like a really modern cave. Okay. Yeah.
So Imam Ghazali, Ibn Taymiyyah.
So you're Salafi and Sufi.
No, so this will be a really interesting dynamic. Like, literally no one will go to sleep in that cave. And I'm tempted to choose between Ibn Rushd or Ibn Sina. Just because, they're really...
Mate, with a bit of controversial, mate. It's a very controversial cave, actually.
Like, as like sort of performing from a philosophy background, like, I'd find that really interesting.
Definitely, alhamdulillah. I guess, everyone can kind of relate that. Though it's more about intellectual dialogue and discourse in that cave, and in that sense, seeing ideas play out and see how they interact with one another.
Because they all sort of interacted with each other, like on a publication level. So it would be really
publication.
Yeah, so like
I don't know if they got royalties, but
there's no intellectual property in Islam. So it would be really interesting to see, like, have them, if you could simulate that discussion, which is probably not possible, but if you could see how they would interact with each other, knowing the person as well as just the thinking.
I think they would agree a lot more than they would disagree, I guess. And I think I can't remember. I think it was someone from iERA. Actually, I think it was Hamza Tulsa. I can't remember. But anyway, so he was saying that. No, sorry, it was Yasir Qadi. He said that if Ibn Taymiyyah, I don't know if he just said only Ibn Taymiyyah or Ghazali, or if one of or both of them were alive today, they wouldn't be talking about issues 600 years ago that come from they're talking about present. So they would be united in the sense of tackling, I don't know, liberalism, secularism, atheism, like
All
all
the
these
ideas
ideas
that
of the
of
modern
today,
time,
yeah,
and
yeah.
sometimes we forget that we're more fixated on the divides that happened in the past, or the divides that we live in now, Sufi, Salafi, etc., and we forget the real sort of things that we should be encountering in society, and what we should be really dealing with. You know what I mean? So inshallah it changes in that sense, but we'll probably wrap it up there. So Jazakallah khair again. I said that like 3 times for coming, boys in the cave. It was good to really connect. Actually, sorry, one quick question though. You know, people call people who are engaging in Samarkandis and all that.
Really?
And didn't you know it's a thing?
No, I didn't
So
know.
they think like Boys in the Cave is very liberal lefty, and that's why Samarkand is liberal lefty, so they're influencing Boys in the Cave, which means that the liberals are getting to us and destroying the tradition because pomos and etc. Haven't you heard this?
This is a really convoluted conspiracy theory, but anyway.
Like, come on, man.
We get grouped. We get grouped with you guys. I'm like, dude, don't put me down.
Oh, yeah. If it wasn't for Samarkand, you'd have no viewers. No watch parties. No kidding.
Alhamdulillah. But so you haven't heard that at all?
I maybe I've heard that in passing, but I didn't think it was a thing.
Okay, because it is a thing, and we cop it a lot at Boys in the Cave.
Oh, wow,
yeah.
really?
But yeah,
Okay.
inshallah it changes though. Inshallah. But so we'll wrap it up there. So for our listeners, thank you for giving us your attention. If you have any questions or queries, feel free to email us at info@boysinthecave.com or find us on Facebook. You can follow our journey through Instagram. We do have a WhatsApp thread dedicated for listeners of Boys in the Cave. So if you go on patreon.com/boysinthecave, it's $5 a month to support us. And I think we got quite a few people. I think it's like 25 people, where we just literally discuss important dini conversations, but we also interact with like, what sort of guests and conversations we should have, or what topics we should discuss. And I usually say it beforehand when we record. And they usually even, pitch in and sort of contribute to the conversation. I had one time, I probably didn't do it today because I'm overseas and this and that. Sorry, not overseas, interstate. But one time during the episode, it was actually with Adnan Rashid, where one of our, shout out to Yaman, he actually proposed, like, I was just like flicking through the thread because I just chucked in like, do you have any questions? And he asked us asking about caliphates and rulers and all that. And that just opened up amazing conversation. So it's almost like in real time, you can also ask the guest the question, and inshallah that could be beneficial for you, and a lot of intellectual brothers as well and sisters, sorry, not just brothers, sisters, alhamdulillah, in that chat. So inshallah, check it out, join the chat. It's only $5 a month to be in it. So for our special guests, Abdulah Hamimi and myself, we wish you all the best. This is Tanzim signing off. Assalamu alaikum.